afternoon. Mary McDonald with ABC News. The Prime Minister is being accused of putting further strain on the relationship with Indonesia after cancelling a trip to Bali. The ABC understands the Prime Minister has cancelled next week's trip due to an asylum seeker operation off the West Australian coast, which could have caused embarrassment to the Indonesian leader. The Finance Minister says budget preparations mean the Prime Minister is too busy, but a spokesman for Mr Abbott says he hopes to visit Indonesia soon to meet the President. Deputy Labor leader Tanya Plibersek says Mr Abbott should fully explain his decision.
Rejecting this invitation at this late stage really does put extra strain on the relationship. It's very important that the Prime Minister discloses the reason that he's really not going, because Australians deserve to know why he's putting further pressure on the relationship with such an important neighbour.
Russia and Western countries have accused each other of hypocrisy over Ukraine at an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council in New York. The BBC's Nick Bryant reports.
Russia called this emergency meeting of the Security Council to complain about what it called the criminal adventures of the Ukrainian government and warned of catastrophic consequences if its offensive in the eastern part of the country continued. But Moscow came in for an onslaught of criticism from other nations, which claimed it had sponsored the rebels and armed them with weapons capable of bringing down 2 Ukrainian helicopters. Russia was urged strongly to abide by the Geneva Agreement reached last month to de-escalate the crisis, but its ambassador blamed Ukraine for failing to implement it.
The Attorney-General Robert Clark says Labor owes Premier Denis Napthine an apology for referring conflict of interest allegations to the state's anti-corruption watchdog. The opposition leader Daniel Andrews wrote to IBAC seeking an investigation into a $1.5 million government grant to Warrnambool company Midfield Meats. The company's owner Colin McKenna and Denis Napthine own a share in a racehorse. Mr Clark says the corruption watchdog has dismissed Labor's bid for an investigation into the matter.
No evidence of wrongdoing identified, no basis for commencing an investigation. It's clear that this has been a political stunt from Daniel Andrews from the start, and he owes the Premier an apology.
Virgin Mobile customers are experiencing a nationwide blackout with the network going down early this morning. Jonathan Hare reports.
In a statement posted on Virgin Mobile's Facebook page, the company says the network outage is affecting postpaid mobile customers. It says the fault began early this morning and is limiting customers' ability to make calls, use internet data and send SMS. The company says it's doing all it can to urgently fix the fault, and updates will be posted on social media. Angry customers have taken to Facebook and Twitter to express their frustration with the fault. Some have complained the company has taken too long to let them know what's going on, while others have simply expressed their disappointment.
New South Wales police are urging the public to use appropriate heating devices this winter after a Sydney family was taken to hospital with carbon monoxide poisoning. Benjamin Sveen reports.
Emergency services were called to a unit in Liverpool in southwestern Sydney after reports that 3 children were suffering breathing difficulties. It's believed the family, who were all asleep in one room of the home, had used an open coal fire on the floor to keep warm. The doors and windows were shut. Paramedics treated 2 children aged 6 and 11. Their father rushed a third to hospital aged 1. 2 of the attending police officers suffered breathing difficulties. One was also taken to the Liverpool hospital.
To sport, and 2 country Victorian football teams are today competing in the inaugural Pride Cup designed to combat homophobia. James Bennett reports.
Yarra Glen versus Yarra Junction has always been a fierce contest, but there's a different kind of pride at stake today. The teams from Melbourne's rural fringe are battling it out for the first Pride Cup, honouring Yarra Glen player Jason Ball, who came out about his homosexuality 2 years ago. The AFL is sponsoring today's match and last month agreed to new homophobia education and training measures. The AFL's Mark Evans says the league is ready to welcome gay players.
So it has to be an individual's choice. If they are ready, then so are we.
The AFL has so far, though, resisted calls for a Pride round. James Bennett, ABC News, Yarra Glen.
To the weather now, and there's a severe weather warning for East Gippsland, and there's a gale warning for the Bays, Gippsland Lakes, Western Central Coasts and the Central Gippsland and East Gippsland coasts. For the state, areas of rain over the southwest and developing over the southeast during the afternoon with locally heavy falls. Scattered showers otherwise, although showers clearing over the northwest later. For Melbourne, partly cloudy with scattered showers becoming widespread in the afternoon with a top today of 14. Tomorrow, a few showers and 15. It's currently 14 in Melbourne. ABC News.
In her new ABC book, A Year on the Farm, renowned cook and frequent local radio guest Sally Wise achieves her dream wish. In 2012, Sally and husband Rob moved to a farm in Tasmania's Derwent Valley. Sally shares stories of daily life on the farm and over 250 delicious and easy recipes. A Year on the Farm, now available from ABC shops, centres and abcshop.com.au.
Coming to you live on ABC Local Radio and on ABC Grandstand Digital.
Grandstand Digital.
100% pure footy.
Pure footy. Pure footy. Grandstand AFL.
Wastes no time, turns and kicks inside the attacking 50. Turns and dribbles round another goal.
Head ball bounces 40 metres out. He should bounce again. Doesn't have to bother. Goal. One of the highlights of the day. Reaches over the top. Palms down. He's 65 out. Launches very long. Oh, that's an unbelievable goal.
AFL.
Trying to spin his way through. Failed. Gets hold of it. He had a breathless space and didn't waste it.
100% pure footy.
Pure footy.
No one between him and the goals is there. He barrels a long goal.
He doesn't wait for the whistle. Plays on. Goes for goal and kicks a beauty from 40 metres out.
Off the step, kicks across the body and drills the goal.
Gets towards goal.
Swings it in for the winner. He can wheel around and just stroll in and kick a major.
He's from 60. He's whacked it on a path to goal and carried the journey.
Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio and on ABC Grandstand Digital.
Grandstand Digital.
There's a touch of winter about the MCG this afternoon. Bitingly cold, a bit windy, and the threat of rain as the day unfolds. We'll see Hawthorn and St Kilda do battle. The Hawks right up the top of the ladder, and St Kilda 3-3, having so narrowly missed the chance to be 4-2, and against all pre-season expectations still be sitting in the 8s. There is a change to the Hawthorn side. Litherland comes in to replace Stratton. The sub is going to be Hartung, and for the Saints they're as selected, and Saunders is the sub. Gerard Waitley and Mark McClure still with you. Scott West has come in to join us for the afternoon's affairs. Scott, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here and really looking forward to the game.
It's never a bad afternoon when you come to see the benchmark team in it, is it?
No, absolutely. And look, unfortunately, I think St Kilda might have their work cut out for them today, but you're right, coming to see Hawthorn. I do hope the rain holds off, because to see him at the kicking best would be a real treat today.
All right, as always, Drew Morford, part of our Saturday afternoon coverage. He's down in the umpires room. It's umpires appreciation round, or community umpires round, depending on how it's been branded this year. He's down with field umpire Jacob Mollison.
Well, Jacob, this week we've seen umpires on the TV, they've been on the radio, but it's great to be in the sanctum on game day. How does it feel for you, letting the media in to chat to you just before the game?
Oh, the more the merrier, Drew. It's been good. Look, we're just trying to embrace this as much as possible. Give that sort of interest to umpiring, because we really want to recruit, at those lower levels where we are struggling for numbers. So anything that we can do, that's going to help, hopefully bring those numbers through. And, guys like Jai here from Warragul umpires, if they can get an interest in it and come along as well, the more the merrier.
Yeah, so you're embracing the juniors on a pathway up. I'll have a quick word with you, Jai. You played footy this morning down at Warragul, and now you're here to look at the umpires on a big game at the MCG. That's huge.
Yeah.
Would you rather be an umpire or a footballer?
Probably a footy player, but I like umpiring a lot.
Do you? How long have you had a go at it? Have you tried bouncing the ball and all that stuff?
Yeah, I've umpired 6 games, and I started the start of this season.
Well, that's a fantastic pathway. Good luck to you, Jai, and I hope one day we see you running around. There's less umpires than footballers, so there's a better chance to be an umpire. And Jacob, is that the way you look at it?
I think that's a good strategy. Maybe that's the way we can sort of recruit. But, it's a great way to get the kids involved, and hopefully, John might be an umpire now coming through the ranks, and that's what we want to see. So it's great.
So on game day, you've just been round to the rooms and you've met the players. Is it still, inspecting them for rings and all that stuff?
No, none of that. Just a few handshakes, go around the rooms and see the boys before the game, and coaches as well, and just sort of introduce yourself if you're not sure of them. But, I had about 100 games under my belt now, so I know a few of the boys, but it was good to introduce Robbie, who's doing his first game today, just to sort of for them to embrace him as well, and now go out there and do a good job today.
So you do have a first gamer with you today. The umpiring, the central three, are you still operating in teams?
We did the first 5 weeks in teams. Last week was a bit different with all the Anzac Day games and everything as well. So we sort of got mixed up then. We're looking to be put into teams again for another 4 weeks. So I'll be with Robbie and Dino, all going well. Form and injury, pending. But fingers crossed we can have a really good solid 4 weeks ahead.
So it's a really experienced umpire, a moderately experienced and a newcomer.
Yeah, that's generally what they're trying to do, just to try and, spread the balance, I suppose. And it worked really well for the first 5 weeks. So, fingers crossed we can have another good 4 weeks ahead.
And when you get to go and meet the players, do you have to know them really well? Or, can you play Free Kick Smith? Do you have to know all their Christian names and all that?
I think the main thing we want to get is the free kick right first. So that's the ideal thing. If we have to use the club, the club and then the number or what have you, so be it. But you generally know the surnames at least to really try and pick that player out of that 36 players around the ball at some times.
Some of the frees are pretty hard to come by. Have you had to change your view on what is holding the ball, what's a reasonable tackle, the ball spills free, and the bloke is on the bottom of the pack with 3 blokes jumping on him?
Look, we've just got to make sure the tackle's legal at the end of the day, particularly with holding the ball. It can be a little bit contentious from time to time, but, the main things that we look out for, tackled legally, has the player had a prior opportunity or not? If he hasn't, it needs to make that genuine attempt. So there are a fair few things that run through our head where we've got to just make that decision, but, we're experienced enough, we get enough coaching around that to make sure that we get that decision right, the majority of the time. There's obviously going to be the odd one that pops out that we're probably a bit too harsh on that, and we'll acknowledge that, and we don't want to pay them ones, but unfortunately that does happen from time to time, and we're the first to admit it. But we ideally need to go through that process to make sure we get the right result.
You've got the right coaches. I see Scott McLaren's poked his nose in today, so you've got Cambo in charge and Hayden Kennedy. You're under a pretty good regime, aren't you?
I think so. Look, the resources have been fantastic. Having 4 full-time coaches with Hayden, Michael Vozzo, Michael Jennings and Brian Sheen, we've got the resources now. They've also got in guys like you, Mick Burney's, and mentors like McLaren and everything like that as well. So we've certainly got the resources around us, and that's where we really want to pull in the same direction to really take the umpiring to that next level.
And it's a real team here, all the boundaries, the field umpires and the goal umpires in together. I even see there's a medical room and you can get a massage. Gee, you get well looked after.
We're a bit fortunate, Drew. Up at the highest level, we do get looked after pretty well. So, it's something that we certainly don't take for granted, because we know that it doesn't happen everywhere, but we do get looked after here, and we've just got to make sure we do a fair bit of running. The game's so quick now, we've just got to make sure our bodies are right to keep up with it and get us in the best position. So yes, it is a great team environment, and that's what we're really trying to push.
I walked through the car park to get here. I didn't see any cars with blackened windows and all that. Do you have to sneak out of the ground sometimes if you feel as though you mightn't have had a good one?
No, look, generally we're pretty okay with that. It's interesting. You see people from day to day. They might recognise you down the street or anything, but they're generally just happy. Go like everyone's forgotten about it by then if there was an error, so we can laugh about it. But haven't had any issues leaving the grounds, thankfully.
And there's no armed guards on the door either.
No, there's a few security guards around. We should be okay. We haven't had any issues thus far. Touch wood.
Well, Jacob, thanks very much for letting me into the inner sanctum and giving me a view on what umpiring's like. Normally I don't notice umpires, and I suppose that's what you want. You don't want me to see you from the commentary box.
Yeah, if you don't mention us once today, Drew, we'll be wrapped, mate. Hopefully you've had a really good day, so that's the aim for us.
Drew Morfitt down in the umpires room there with Jacob Mollison in the lead up to Saturday afternoon footy, Hawthorn and St Kilda. And the second game is the GWS Giants in Canberra hosting Port Adelaide. So we'll keep in touch with the scores there throughout the afternoon. And yes, the umpires have been quite proactive throughout the week, which is never a bad thing. But once the first bad decision gets made, we all go back to, we all say back to where we usually are.
I don't like that. I think that one of the great things about our game is you need these guys, and I think we should continue to push junior development of that area. I think that some of the and protecting them, because they are an integral part of our game, and we should respect their position. And I think it's a very important thing for all.
Okay, Gillan McLaughlin will be with us shortly. So the meet and greet interview with the new Chief Executive of the AFL. Scott West, on an afternoon such as this with St Kilda, they're in a heavy learning phase and they missed out last week. They should have won that game in the end. They had enough chances inside the last 3 minutes. What would they expect to get out of an afternoon like this against a Hawthorn team that is so well set?
Well, they want to walk off the ground tonight, 4 o'clock or whatever time it is, knowing that they've competed, knowing that they've given themselves a chance to be in the game. Nothing worse, and we saw it last week with Richmond, than really playing catch-up footy from quarter time or 15 minutes into the game. They don't want to be in that position, because if they are, I think it could get really ugly. Another challenge I think Richo will set his players is really setting midfielders, young midfielders, on some experience, the Hodges and the Mitchells and these players that have been around the block a long time, and I think there's no better learning than in the heat of the game. And, I think it's going to be interesting to see, their philosophy on that, because clearly Hawthorn are a better team, clearly. So you've got to get something out of the game. And if each player can walk into the room on Monday at the review and go, well, what did I learn out of the game from one of the better players in the league, Mitchell and these sort of players. So, that'll be one of their focus, I hope. And if they can do that for long enough, they can be in the game. And footy's a strange game, but hopefully they can learn something out of off one of the better teams in the competition.
How much do individuals learn on a day like this, would you think?
I think a lot. I think I think when you reflect back on your own career, playing on some of the better players, like I was fortunate enough to play on a Brett Ratton, so to learning off him at a stoppage, his body position, where he would run in the next contest to get the ball, I certainly took a lot out. But it's what you do after the game. Do you go home and you need to write it down? You need to focus what happened during the game so you can actually learn, not just go home and forget about it, which all the good players would do. They get a document for themselves so that next time they play on these players or players of the like, they can implement some of the strategies that were put against them.
So the afternoon on Grandstand AFL is Hawthorn and St Kilda, with scores from the Giants and Port Adelaide along the way. The most momentous events of the week surrounded what happened at the AFL and the formalising of the next era, and Gil McLaughlin was named Chief Executive. There'll be elements of Gil that we well recognise. Mark McClure, won't there?
He was busy. He's been very busy here as well.
Gil, welcome to Grandstand AFL.
Thank you, Jared. Thanks for having me.
I know people suggested that the first thing you should do would be a listening tour. Well, it demands that it be a talking tour. So for 4 days solid, you've pretty well been in the public eye. What are you hearing most? If you were to pick one thing that you're hearing repeatedly and consistently, what would it be?
I think that the two themes coming out is one around fans and listening, and it's not as obvious as just cost. It's more, I think, it's an acceptance that there's a broad range of things that they want to be heard on. And I think if I summarise it, it's not this thing, but I think the general sentiment around the game comes up, in my words, comes back to, at the bottom end, support my club because of this gap. So it's around, I want to be competing for premierships. I don't want to be playing sort of in nightmare slots because we're no good. Please help me with my club. I flipped it the other way, and I think that's consistent. I've said one of the biggest challenges we have, and maybe the biggest, is narrowing the gap between the big and the small, and try and help clubs not bottom out as far, and be able to invest in their footy departments and be able to compete.
That notion of listening to the fans, which I agree, that's clearly the strongest thing we've heard in the various talkback segments we've had. How can you tangibly show that you're doing
that? One thing I've always had the view is that no matter what the media or others are saying, people understand, and it's a bit, so they know if you're actually listening and hearing and acting on things that are real, and so we've just got to show them. So, if the illustration is the most sort of tangible one is around cost, I've just got to get something done. The industry just has to get something done on that, and I spoke to Stephen Goff last night, and we just have to get some stuff done. I've got to work with our team to make our pricing cleaner. As I've used the word encumbrances, maybe it's a bit strong, but anything that's in the way of our fans, our passionate fans, coming to watch the best game in the world with the best athletes in the best set of facilities in the world, we've got to do that. And because so much of it's good, I've walked through that, and we've got our base prices are cheap, and a GA membership at $188 or $90. At under $20 a game is reasonably affordable. But it's all the stuff that hang on that, and we just got to get some stuff done.
So a government would come in with 100 days and a whole set of small things that actually are achievable. Are there a set of things that you could act on immediately that would, I'm not sure whether appease is the right word, but would comfort people that you've heard and you can act where it's possible?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, whether it's 100 days or certainly in a reasonable time frame. And there's a whole series of things, Jared, I won't bore everyone, that I think we need to do. I've called out a couple of them. I've obviously been thinking about this for a while, and I just think that going and delivering on them, there's some stuff that's going to take a long time, but there's some stuff that won't, and that's what people want to see. They want to see, in a few days' time, the time for talking will be over, and we've got to get on with it and crack on.
Gil, there's a perception out there that is probably perception sometimes reality, that we understand that you're involved with the previous regime and all these things weren't fixed then. So why would they be fixed now?
I just think that there's an iteration, Mark, in the sense that, if they're the challenges of the day, they weren't the challenges of the day 10 years ago. There's been an extraordinary amount done. Now, Andrew's tenure at the AFL, there's a bit of noise at the end relating to sort of process around Essendon, but if you look at where the AFL was 10 years ago when Andrew started, whether it's in revenue or ratings or the state of our stadiums, whether it's, there was 16 teams, not 18, whether it was we didn't have a digital media business, he's had an extraordinary period of success.
No doubt about that.
So now it's just the challenges are different for the next 5 or 10 years, and I think people understand that. I'm not saying that some of the stuff maybe we shouldn't have done or shouldn't have addressed, but these are the challenges of the day. I think that as part of Andrew's administration, I've helped deliver on some of those successes, and now my challenge is to look at what the issues of the day are now.
The openness to the people, some of those cases that were brought in front of you guys, and you gave weeks to South Australian guy and Trigg and Volusia and all those things. The openness of those things were never in the public eye. Will they be now?
I don't think that. I think they have to be more than they were. What the exact process is, or how that's dealt with exactly going forward, I can't tell you, and I've been talking to the Commission about that. But I think that's the learning out of all that, because I'm really clear about why and what we did, and it was the right outcome. But the process and the transparency and the clarity of that and the communication around that, we suffered for that, and I've put my hand up and acknowledged that, I guess.
Gil, congratulations firstly. You spoke earlier about fans wanting to know or fearful of their survival of their clubs, like the Bulldogs, St Kilda, the Kangaroos, the less financial clubs. Obviously, one of the methods of equalising this is the equalisation fund, but also teams having to sell home games and make a dollar out of that. What are some of the other strategies that teams can put in place, or you are working with the clubs to lift their finances?
Essentially, there's sort of 4 or 5 things, Scott, around clubs and where they're at. There's some structural stuff that takes a long time and some structural stuff that takes less time. Size of fan bases is a huge issue, but that's generated over 10s and 20s and hundreds of years. Stadium arrangements are stuff that we can work on more definitively, more aggressively, and whether it's the Lions of the Gabba deal or whether it's an Etihad arrangement for the tenant clubs there. I think the fixture has an important part in that, and you're talking about selling games and others, and we have to continue to work at that, although it's a difficult one. And then there's the broader sort of management challenges, and we're going to work closely with clubs to try and help them get some sort of more talent and depth in their organisations right across the board, not just at the chief executive level, but right down through that, so they're making better decisions and growing their clubs, and hopefully also through innovation and other sort of more organic growth.
Tell me about the match review panel. Is there? Well, I think between us, and you have a wry smile, there is a review required for some of the things that we see. The same thing happen for two people and a different result on some occasions, and we all sit there and go, "What? I don't get this."
Yeah, I'm super confident in Mark Evans, who's running that portfolio. He's a footy guy who's been around a long time. He's incredibly pragmatic. I'm not going to comment it per se, but he's a guy that I've got huge confidence in working through all of the challenges of the footy portfolio to deliver the confidence that people need and all that. I have to say that, God, it's hard. I mean,
difficult. We understand that.
Someone asked me, and we'll have, you and I will sit there and have a completely different view about stuff.
Correct.
Someone asked me what the hardest question I'd had over the last previous days, and it's not really the sort of the bigger picture stuff. Specific questions about why would Nat Fyfe get rubbed out for a couple of weeks or even a week for an accident? It's hard to answer. But in the end, we have to protect the head. The head's sacrosanct. The only answer I can give, and I think people get the theory of it, but when you apply it, especially when it's your team, it's challenging.
Yeah,
especially when you're talking to Mark Rashudo.
We're in a contact business, and sometimes accidents happen.
Yeah, it is. But we're in a different era too, where we have to be proactively protecting people as well, I think, to the best you can.
The minutiae of the game. Last night, the score review gets called for and the whole crowd sort of seethes about it now. Well, why wouldn't you just sign a cheque and fix this and put the cameras where they should be, regardless? If it costs $100,000, I refuse to accept that you don't have that money to spend and give yourself a chance at actually having a proper system.
It's a great question, Jared, in the sense that one of the things I've been clear about is that the officiating of our game has a massive, massive impact on people's enjoyment of the contest. I think our guys, I wouldn't want to be an umpire for love nor money. But what I think it's incumbent on us, and I've spoken to Mark about this, and he's on board with this, we have to continue to invest in the officiating of our game, to work with our umpires and the umpiring team to give them everything they need so they can actually deliver the best performance they can. And then, so that's not a comment on our umpiring reviewing system, it's a comment on what we need to do to help them to become true, to be everything they want to be. And that's going to be a priority. And how much and how then we'll work through.
Just probably from a personal interest point of view, I totally agree with what you said at the press conference about we've got one of the greatest games, because obviously you're asking about the state of the game on field and the way it's being played. My only worry there is being involved at grassroots level with junior kids, that it's infiltrating the style of game that the kids are actually playing. We're getting multiple tags, we're getting numbers behind the footy, we're getting multiple numbers around the ball. How can we assure that, the junior coaches are re-educated on skill development of individuals rather than getting carried away? And junior clubs are implementing rotation policies at under 12s and 14s. We need to have a real enjoyment. We need to have a development of players so that we continue to get great players coming into the AFL. And I know that's a long way away, under 14s, under 12s, but that's where it all starts.
Yeah, I don't have a specific question on that, other than to say that challenge is real, and we've got a Grant Williams who's now going to head up sort of development nationally. He's a really experienced guy who's been a coach, he's been an administrator, he's done a whole series of things, and he gets all that. So when we then put in a policy which he led through research around the no scoring, I sit there without information, go, that doesn't make sense. Life's about winning or losing. What he'll say to you is, well, we've trialled in all these other states. The participation rates are significantly higher where it doesn't happen, because it takes the ugly parents out of it. Because there's no winning or losing, for 8 and 9-year-olds, the kid who's not very good, who otherwise always plays in the back pocket, gets a run through the centre, he gets to enjoy it. They actually get to grow and develop. It's a slightly different question than one you're asking, but the point is we need our kids to have fun, fall in love, and the right time be serious about it and go. And so that's not my field of expertise, but I know that we've got a guy running that who is incredibly passionate, is engaged with the community, and he's going to have a lot of responsibility in solving those problems.
I don't doubt that you've probably been in the role for a little while, but are you looking forward to it?
I am, Jared. It's it's only, I have to say, and my people won't say, it's only, Andrew's been incredibly generous with me and let me run different things, and he's, we're incredibly close, but it's only this week when you actually I guess, win the job on Monday and get appointed, that you actually do think about it. You feel the responsibility, you feel the pressures, but you do get excited about being able to work with a great team at the AFL and then work with the industry and the clubs to make this great game better. And I've got a clear view about that, and that's exciting.
Good luck with it all. We'll talk throughout, I'm sure.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your support.
Gil McLaughlin, the new Chief Executive of the AFL, with us on Grandstand AFL.
Hey, going somewhere? Oh, hello, ABC radio app. I'm catching the bus. Want to come?
Yeah. What do you want to listen to?
How about some music?
What do you feel like today? Classic? Jazz? Unearthed? Country? Dig music? Triple J?
Dig music, please.
Let's go.
Take ABC Radio with you on your phone. Download the free ABC Radio app and choose from 19 ABC radio stations, including 6 specialty music stations, wherever you go.
Grandstand AFL.
Grandstand AFL.
Live and commercial free.
You're with Grandstand.
It's a brisk afternoon in Melbourne, just a touch of winter about it as Hawthorn and St Kilda prepare to shape up on the MCG. The Hawks have laid a down payment on their season. St Kilda has been a delightful surprise, but now they go up against the real testing material. Gerard Waitley with you. Drew Morfitt is with me. Drew in the box. Hello.
Afternoon, G. It was interesting going down to the umpires' room. Good atmosphere down there, and they have teamwork just like the footy teams. So it was interesting to be there on match day. Relaxed, really good. There's a bloke making his debut here today, Robert O'Gorman, on debut in the AFL. So he'll be a bit nervous, won't he?
He will indeed. The change to the Hawthorn side as Stratton is out and Litherland takes his place. The Saints are as selected. The subs are Hartung for the Hawks and Saunders for the Saints. And there are debutants across the field as well, which we'll take you through as the afternoon unfolds. So we're about to see Jordan Lewis come out and break through his banner. An early pick from... that's that super draft for Hawthorn where they really built their team. 220 games, he's played a possible 200 of them. So it's happened in a real hurry that he's been able to reach that milestone.
Oh, it's an amazing day for him, actually. He's tonight being engaged to Lucy Freer. And it's 200 game. What an unusual day for him. It'll be fantastic for him and his family and the Freer family as well. So good luck to him. He's a good guy. And he works with you, Gerard, as well, and you understand him pretty well, and he's a good fella, so good luck.
Have you got the stats on the 20 he's missed? How many injured, how many suspended?
Most suspended. So he missed a few in his first year, but once he got settled, he just had a little run, didn't he?
Well, sometimes you get annoyed.
Sometimes you play angry.
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with that either.
All right, well, set this up for us. We'll have scores throughout from Canberra, where the Giants hosting the Power. Mark McClure and Scott
Just before
West.
you go, that playing without any results is like a little mummy's rule. You know, the goody two-shoes have put that together, and I'm not certain it works, but we'll work that one out later.
No, I didn't think you'd approve of that.
I think you need a result, and you need to share all that sort of stuff. Oh, we're at the MCG. It's a beautiful afternoon, seriously. There may be some rain later on, but it's perfect conditions, cloudy, cool, perfect for playing football. And we have the best side in the competition, or one of the best sides in the competition in Hawthorn here. Gibson plays down back, Brian Lake's back, he takes the tools. Taylor Duray's really working well. Hodge is down there to do some stuff, and Birchall will run the ball out. Sometimes Burgoyne will come through as well. Their midfield is outstanding, and we understand that of Isaac Smith, Mitchell and Hill. Throw in Lewis and Burgoyne and all the other blokes that go through there. They're just a Piopolo goes through, Suckling goes through. They are super in every way, and their forward line. Makers comes back in. A young man who's had a terrible injury and just come back today to play. He'll probably play it forward, I would think. And he's a lump of a man. He's there with Brewster, he's Gunston and Rioli, Hale, and nothing changes. Jared Ruffhead up forward. They continue to use the ball well. They do it very well. They're really good, tough side in and under. They contest the ball very good. They've got great leaders, and they've got some youth in today. I really like the youth that's come in today, in Mitch Halloran, Hartung as well, a young kid as well as his first game, and he's off the sub bench. So they continue to blood and push players through to help them for the future, to grow their list. So when it comes September, they've got a few guys who've had a few games. St Kilda, they've got a hell of a lot of youth. Billings in there, Akers, Webster, Saunders, Curran. It goes on and on and on. And they are at a different stage of life. the youth for the youth today, and I listen to Westy talk about it. It is a great learning day for these guys. They're playing against the best in the competition. It's time to test yourself. How good am I? Am I fit enough? Am I strong enough? Do I need to do more work? Test yourself against the best players. It'll be fantastic playing on Hodge. Get a feel for that. Wow, what about this bloke? But don't get starstruck. Don't be in awe. The dollars don't matter. Once you walk over the line, if he's on X amount of dollars and you're on naught, who cares? It doesn't matter. You can still beat these guys. And their defence has been pretty well run by Gwilt. Gwilt down there in Guiri, and also Dempster. Delaney's come in from North. They've got a couple of other Simpkin there as well. Jack Stephen in their midfield's a really good player. Farron Ray probably should have won that game for him last week, but he missed a goal at the end. And they've got good leaders in Jack Rewalt and Schneider and a few others around the place. They've got a ruckman in Longer, a young kid in Nunes, and they've got a Hawthorn player in Shane Savage who came across to us as well. They have a reasonable experience, but a lot of youth. They're going to find it very tough here this afternoon, but a good test for their young players, and the St Kilda supporters see a future. They didn't see one for a while there when they didn't play any kids, but now they are. And sometimes it's good to come to the football and see what your club's going to look like in 3 to 4 to 5 years, Westy.
Well, I think you're right, mate. I was listening to you guys on the way in. I think St Kilda are a team that know exactly where they're at. So they're wanting to get young kids into the team. Very well supported by Rewalt, Hayes, Montanga, these sort of players that, just stand up week in, week out. But, they're making way at times in games for younger players to come through the middle part of the ground, go and play, that running half back. I'm really interested in both styles of play here today. The St Kilda defence will be challenged like no other. They can't allow Hawthorn to come through the corridor, use the angle 45 inside, switch the ball. They need to be right on the defensive game today to even have a chance of winning. I just love watching Hawthorn, the way they move the footy. They just kick the lights out of it. They kick the ball. So an uncontested mark count will be something that St Kilda will look at, because they just cannot get change of uncontested marks, because Hawthorn will just go from one end of the field to the other and St Kilda won't see it. So their defensive pressure has to be at all-time high today. The other thing that's going to really challenge St Kilda is, I do believe you need to play 6 forwards against Hawthorn, because they are the best at getting one back or getting a tall defender come third man in, whether it be Lake or Gibson. Gibson's done it time and time again for the Hawthorn Football Club. So they allow the third man up, then they just run and they kick. And, it's a real challenge, because obviously then you've got even numbers across the board, you've got even numbers at stoppage. So their contested ball and the way they win the ball, it's got to be, again, it's got to be right on. But if they allow Hawthorn to have a 1+, even if they go 7 defenders, St Kilda will get a 7 forwards, because that's how they set the game up. A 1+ or extra defence, third man up and away they go. So, a big challenge for them. But again, a day where they'll walk away from this game, hopefully learning something. Maybe 1, maybe 2, hopefully 3 things from their opposition.
Who will play on Nick? You've got Gibson there. You've got Brian Lake won't mark him, but could Hodge play with him, or Birchall?
Well, look, I think the thing about Nick is he gets so far up the ground that you can afford to play an undersized player on him. Someone that's just going to go with him for endurance.
He takes 12 chest marks a week.
That's because he works so hard and he's got so much time to take chest marks. So, they can afford to play a Birchall. So what they'll do is they'll swing players on and off him. So if he goes high, they might run a Birchall. I don't think Hodge will go. I don't think Hodge has got the running capacity to go with him. But they might get a Birchall. They might get
Burgoyne?
Could get Burgoyne. They really like playing Hodge on a tall, deep.
Yeah.
When the ball comes to the ground, he's off and running. Yeah, Lake and Gibson, I think they might go with him deep, because when he's deep, he doesn't seem to move as much as what he does for that exit kicks out of defensive 50. So, it'll be a huge challenge for Hawthorn. And, for good teams, they just want to keep getting better. So they'll need to get tactically a way to stop Nick Rewalt having a real impact on this game.
See, all the kids are actually play a lot of seconds football before they get in. They don't gift a game over there. There's no gifts. You've got to earn your spot. And when you get in there, you need to hang on as hard as you can, because once you fall out of the trap, and as we've seen with Collingwood and their defence there, that those guys coming back in are going to find it hard. Once you make a name for yourself, it's hard to put yourself out.
Absolutely. And they've had a history of that, Hawthorn, and they've had a riches of obviously success over a period of time, in the 80s and of recent times. So, they've had players play 100 seconds game. And it's the right way to bring them through, because one, they get the style of play down pat. So once they come into the senior team, they know exactly how the senior team want to play. There's no ifs and buts or questions. They know exactly what the standards and the expectations are when they walk on the field in the brown and gold. So, that sort of introduction to AFL footy, is the right pathway.
I think if you want to go and watch his teams train, go and watch Hawthorn. They train at full belt. They train very long with their kicking skills and their drills, and they hit targets, and they're very, very good at it. And sometimes some coaches say, "Oh no more kicking." Well, no, not the Hawks. They are the best in the competition. They have a whole lot of left footers. They move the ball well. They're the best to watch, and they're the toughest as well. It's a pretty good combination, Westy.
Well, it is. And the one thing you mentioned there is tough. They are relentless. And you talk about Lewis playing his 200 game. He's relentless. He's ruthless. And that's why he's been such a good player. Even as a young player coming on, I remember, mouthing off and pushing blokes and, probably didn't have a right to early on in his career because he was just making a name for himself. But that's the way he played. And he's been a brilliant player for the Hawthorn team.
I like the brashness, though.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, man, you want to see people test each other and test the opposition. Doesn't matter what your paycheck says. It's what happens at the end of the day, how many you got on your numbers.
And, if you want to talk it up during a game or push and shove, you need to be able to stand up and deliver. And he's been able to do that for 200 games. They've got a lot of players that have done that.
Should have played 230, unfortunately.
But I think that's the way he's made a name for himself, that ruthlessness. And, there's been players in the past that have done the same.
Yeah, the thing about the Hawks, do they lapse against poor sides? No, they don't. They took Richmond to the sword last week. There's no lapse there. They don't sort of drop off. They don't. They play consistent quarters every game, and if they drop off, it's only for a couple of minutes, and then they're back on track. He won't let them off.
And that'll be a measurement. They'll have KPIs in their box and at quarter time, half time to make sure they're on track to play the style of game and the way they want to play. They'll respect St Kilda, but there'll be a huge watch on how they play. St Kilda will probably have more KPIs on what they don't want Hawthorn to be doing as opposed to what Hawthorn want to be doing. So the boxes will be operating at different levels today.
The thoughts of Scott West and Mark McClure ahead of Hawthorn and St Kilda. On the boundary for us this afternoon, Nerily Meadows. Nerily, hello.
Hello, I fear it is an ominous sign for St Kilda. When they were running out, the banners were up and St Kilda had a couple of kicks through the banner as is traditional. The footies hit the banner, fell straight to the ground. When Hawthorn tried to do it, it sailed straight through. So not sure it's a good sign early for St Kilda. It's blue skies at the moment, but we are expecting a little bit of rain later today. Perfect conditions, as Mark touched on, for footy, not so much for boundary riders. As we look at the substitutes, it's a late withdrawal for Hawthorn. Ben Stratton is out with a corked hip. Billy Hartung comes in as a substitute, and Josh Saunders is the sub for St Kilda. And I ran into Brad Sewell up in the stands a little while ago, and he said he's just a couple of weeks away now. That's been the listing for the Hawthorn injury list for quite some time now, but he says he's actually 2 weeks away now. So hopefully we'll see him back in the Hawks colours not too far away.
Speaking of colours, the radar with what's approaching Melbourne, it's not only got a bit of white and a bit of blue, it's got a bit of yellow and a bit of red. So this could really turn as the afternoon unfolds.
So we're in a good spot here.
We're well protected.
For me to get the mercy law and come upstairs.
Very bad.
The red, I reckon. You can endure the yellow on the way through. So the small things in the game. McAvoy against a side that he probably never expected to be moved on from. Savage, I imagine, would have loved to have remained a Hawk, but opportunity is elsewhere. So, and then there's a Brisbane player and a Gold Coast player. So St Kilda's a nice collection now, trying to form their own identity again.
And Doggy's a Lake as well with Doggy. So everyone's out there. I think McAvoy's an interesting player. I think he's a better player now than he's ever been. He's actually learnt that he doesn't have to sit back in the half-back line. He's got to test his ruckman and go forward sometimes. He handballs every opportunity he does instead of trying to kick it as he did in the past. Completely different set of rules for this guy and understanding where he's at and what he's doing. And he's enjoying it. Savage, I suppose he's the other one that has come across. They let him go because he wanted opportunity. He found opportunity. But sometimes they started him as a sub last week. So he may have messed up some of that opportunity. He should be one of their really good players.
So he's been elevated from sub to the starting team. He's lucky to be in the side after he gave away that 50-metre penalty last week. It cost him the game against Brisbane.
He's not bigger than the rest, I can assure you. And maybe that little thing of being at Hawthorn and I'm better than you, well, he's not better than them. So he needs to pull his head in and set a great example for his teammates and not the one he set last week.
Hawthorn's debutant will start as the sub, Billy Hartung, the 19-year-old. but St Kilda's debutant Blake Acres will start on the ground. So there are tremendous raps around Acres. He's played 3 games in the VFL, and from what I was told, he's just too good for that level. So he's burst the door down to get his opportunity.
Well, there's nowhere else to go if you're too good for that level, Jared.
Well, he's likened to Brendan Goddard with that the versatility in his game. Half back, half forward, really high speed and endurance. So, and I love the fact that he's starting. I don't like debutants starting as the sub. There's too much anxiety already. No sleep the night before. All of a sudden you've got to sit there maybe for 3/4 before you get an opportunity. Just play them. If they run out of puff halfway through the third, get them off then.
So Hawthorn will kick for the punt road end in the opening term, and as Mark mentioned, on his return, Ryan Schoenmakers is going to start in the forward line. Scott West and Mark McClure in place with Gerard Whateley and Drew Morford to get us underway this Saturday afternoon on Grandstand AFL.
Thank you, Jared. The sun shines for the start of the game. I don't know how much we're going to have during the day. Looks an uneven contest in the middle with McAvoy against Longer, and Big Ben has been fantastic for the Hawks since he moved across in the off-season from the Saints. This afternoon against his old team.
And Gibson's got Revolt.
So we're about to get underway. And the first game umpire starts the game. Longer works it down. Bit of a fumble underneath. Burgoyne slings out a hand pass and off come the Hawks. Brewster hand pass to McAvoy. Off to Mitchell. Wide he comes. And the Hawks back up to centre wing. Lewis, the hand pass to Gunson. Gee, they've handled the ball beautifully. And a kick to full forward in front. Roughhead can't take the mark, but he gets after the crumb. Hand pass away to Burgoyne, who's covered half the park. And Burgoyne nails the goal in the opening 30 seconds.
Well, if you came along here to see some skills, you saw it absolutely perfectly there. And that was just a brilliant piece of play of team play. Handballs quick, in spots, in their eyes, nothing flash, nothing fancy, but just gorgeous. And moved up the ground, and Burgoyne was on the end of it, the recipient, but he didn't do all the work, I can assure you.
12 disposals to 0 in the opening 30 seconds. It was too quick to call.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a more ominous start.
Outstanding. Wow. It just... Look, as I said before the game, St Kilda defensive pressure's got to be at its all-time high. We just the mistake
Can't
they made.
Stop that.
Well, mate, the mistake they made at centre wing here was 2 went to the ball carrier. They didn't take out the receiver, and that's good. Clubs do that. 1 go to the ball, the player with the ball. 1 takes out the receiver, and it's going to be tested.
How can you have 12 disposals in 32 seconds and finish it with a goal? That's just amazing.
Hodge in the middle, but he's lost possession, and Schneider gathers it for the Saints. High ball in the revolt direction. Gibson made the spoil over the top, pushed it out toward the boundary. Ray and Lewis. Lewis pushes Ray over, and the ball beyond the boundary.
Actually, Ruffy did us a favour by dropping the mark. It would have been a slower start if he'd taken the mark.
Left half forward for the Saints. Out on the southern side of the MCG. Hodge and Hayes are together under the pack, and it comes the way of Hayes. His hand pass, though, didn't go to a teammate, and off the ground goes Burgoyne. Shoveled it up towards half forward. Schoenmakers tried to knock it on. Puopolo tried to continue it. Simpkin for the Saints pushed against it. Gave it to Geary. They all swamped him, and the ball is held up at half forward for the Hawks.
This does look awesome. In between wing and half forward, Great Southern stand side. Thrown up. And the third man up wins it, Lewis, towards the boundary line. Grabbed by Hodge. He keeps the ball alive and gains about 40 metres down the line. Out it goes, down towards the 50.
Pretty smart, that third man up. Lewis does it often, and what he does, he hits it into space. And the space was near the boundary, and they all knew Bruce was there.
Bruce stays at the back, and he's got nobody within cooey of him here. Hawthorn bumble the ball forwards, taken by Ray. Gets a little hand pass to Stephen. Along the line goes Webster. And St Kilda with a long kick up towards centre wing. Rewalt gathered a drop mark. Gets it out to Stanley. Centres the ball. Beautifully delivered. And the mark taken by Geary. Still inside the centre square. Here come the Saints. A very high kick inside the 50. Use of the body. Was it legal? It was. Taken by Acres, the kid from West Perth. And it kicks to the line. And it is rushed through for a minor score for the Saints. On debut, Blake Acres, the 18-year-old from West Perth. So it's Hawthorn a goal, the Saints are behind.
Handled himself well in the contest, kept his feet, very important.
Suckling on the kick-in, plays onto himself and into the back pocket. He ignored Hodge short, and instead he used Gunston, working all the way down in defence. Lewis wanted it down the line. McAvoy's happy to have it kicked long to him, but Gunston's having none of that. Back across the face of goal for Gibson. clearly have the transfer of play, so uses it short for Duray. Mitchell's doing a lot of work over the top. The kick goes a little bit shorter than that for Birchall. Get it on quickly. Instead, he used the 45-degree kick to centre half back for Lewis to pick open the play. The kick for Hodge. He flicks a hand pass away to Lake and back to Hodge. Forward of the play, getting loose is Suckling. So he started it with a kick in at full back. He's now forward of the wing. He's kicking in the Hale direction. Simpkin across the front made the spoil. It's to be won at ground level. And getting through is Dempster, but he's dinked it out on the full in his endeavours to hug the boundary.
Kick quickly taken in by Suckling. Back to Hodge. He goes long to the pocket, diving in, and McAvoy tumbles to mark.
He dropped it.
Oh. I had it as a mark, just about wrote it down in my book as a stat for him. And it's rushed out of bounds in the forward pocket for the Hawks. Hawthorn going to the punt road end in the first quarter. Ball comes spinning back in. Clears the ruckman. Clint Jones got a touch at the back. Bobbles around on the ground. Ray somehow digs out a hand pass. Doesn't clear the area. Swarming like bees. The umpire will throw it up.
45 from the Hawthorn goal. Hale to do the ruck work against Longer. Lewis, beautiful. Third man up, wide of the pack. Scouting it was Smith from the boundary. Kicked it into the man on the mark. Or the man coming across his boot anyway in Acres. Just made his presence felt early.
Well, Lenny Hayes needs to stop Lewis doing that third man up. The experienced players have got to stop that because that's 2 clearance already out of that.
And that was a set play which went within a breath of coming off. Through the pack goes Hill. Hand pass to Roughhead at full forward. Kicks it over the defence and bounces it home for the Hawks. Second. The second of plenty, you fancy, the way the first 5.5 minutes has gone.
We go back to the stoppage, and we know that the score was probably a little lucky, ball over the back, but they've got to have better cover, St Kilda. Their structure had let them down then. They've got to have cover at the back of the contest, behind the contest, so that they can't get that scored easily. But the third man up, we talk about congestion around the ball. It is the best way to get the ball outside the first ring, into space. A lot of teams don't use boundary side, but it's where all the space is. And Hawthorn do it really well. They've done it twice where they hit boundary side. Yeah, you're going to the boundary. But they were smart enough, Smith was smart enough to look for the centering kick. And, the good teams are using where the dangerous space is.
Sunshine didn't last long. She's overcast now. McAvoy wins in the middle. It comes down St Kilda's way, but Schneider can't clear it. It bobbles at ground level. Schneider receives a little dinked out hand pass from Nunes. Kick smothered, taken by McAvoy. He's dispossessed. Swooped up by the Hawks. The hand pass out wide to Puopolo. He's got a man wider. Gunston up near the wing. He kicks it close to the boundary line, says to Cyril, get after that. And he does, but he runs out of room. And Rioli is beaten over the line. Throw in about 60 metres around from goal. Narrowly.
Not just overcast, the rain is starting to fall. So we're getting drops already. It's not looking good.
Oh, that's a shame.
No good for the hair now.
That hasn't panned out at all. We thought you might get to quarter time.
Out of the pack, Schneider flings it onto the boot, works it around the wing. Billings takes the mark and flips the hand pass away to Savage, up to Curran, and he works it onto Nunes. Rode the bump from Lake and got away. Nunes sets the Saints deep inside the 50. Needs Ray, knocked away from him by Lewis. At the full, Gibson against Revolt. Gibson gathers, gets his hand pass away to Burgoyne, Lewis and Birchall. The Hawks out of half back. Hand pass to McAvoy. Kicks beyond halfway for Hale. He'll flick the hand pass instantaneously to Hodge. Brewster's is the target. He lets it get past him, turns to run after it. He's got support from Schoenmakers. Schoenmakers keeps it loose out toward the boundary away from Wilkes. And over the line in the right forward pocket.
It is beautiful players, and I watch the Hawthorn players. They just move the ball so freely and cleanly, and they trust each other so much. They just give it to the jumper, and away they go. Fantastic.
In the forward pocket, Hawthorn in attack again. It's won by Longer. He gets it down to Stephen, who skirts the boundary line. Kicks an underground ball outside the 50. Good hands. It's taken over there by Billings. They work it in across half back. Gwilt has it, gets a hand pass away. Kicked up by Dempster to the middle of the ground, and a fantastic effort by Lake. And he's come up a bit sore.
And that play there, exactly what you can't do when you're playing Hawthorn. You can't just have a scrappy kick forward because you're just going to have numbers back. Unless you're going to play 6 forwards and even the numbers, you've got to be able to work it off half back with hands and hit targets leading at you.
Now the Hawks attacking down the members' side. Beautifully done. Duray, short pass. He put Hill under a bit of pressure. He recovered well enough. The hand pass, it's chopped off by the Saints and hacked out of mid-air by Dempster. Back to midfield. Hawthorn swarming in numbers again. Look like bees, and they're playing like a swarm of bees. And it goes all the way back to Lake at centre half back.
He can reset things with a hand pass over the top to Smith. Just a short gallop as he uses it for Schoenmakers, and the Hawks fans are able to welcome him back. He delivers up towards the 50. It got past Mitchell, kicked off the ground by Geary. It returns some 30 metres for St Kilda's cause, but doesn't go out of play. And Isaac Smith is there again, and he's too nimble for longer. Delivers up to the 50. It's a poor kick though, and Geary is camped to take the mark.
Disposals 52-31 in favour of the Hawks. Short pass by Geary, and Longer dives in and marks close to the turf. Still at left half-back flank. Billy Longer kicks it Longer, right up towards the wing. Oh, man in front. Terrific by Gibson. He got in to outnumber the opposition and take the mark. Finds Hodge. And he comes to Birchall. Long left-footed to full forward. Rough head, the hands once, twice, not 3 times, but he rows his own pill. Gets a hand pass up. Bruce snares it just inside the line. Hand pass into Hill, who snaps the goal from the goal line. Unbelievable by Roughhead, Brewston Hill.
Yeah, Roughhead was a man. He took the contested ball in the air and then he backed up. He didn't stop. He went straight on and grabbed it, pulled it back in, quick handball out. Oh, they're just a brilliant side. It started down back with Gibson, who left his man in revolt. You know who picked him up? Brian Lake picked him up. He said, I'll cover for you. So it's the cover in defence which makes it easier for the forwards up forward. And then Gibson has just had plenty of touches already. Probably 5 or 6, Jared. I can't think. 6 already at centre half back, and they've all been pure. And that was another one to push the ball forward. The end of the result was all set up because of Lake and Gibson in defence.
Oh, they play a beautiful game, don't they?
It's going to be a great, even if it is one side, it's going to be a great game to watch.
It could be shockingly lopsided, and yet I'm thoroughly looking forward to the next couple of hours from that point of view.
Just pure. Absolutely pure.
Hawks by 17. The bounce was no good, so it'll be tossed up instead. It's Hale against Stanley as they go at it. Hale with the tap down to Mitchell. He lost it. Hayes feeds it out the back. Got the hand pass away to Weller. Up inside the 50 for St Kilda. No mark taken. Lewis leads the chase for the Hawks. He paddles it for Gibson. Works the hand pass backward. Not neat this time. Suckling had to go and win the footy off the ground. Jones is in there to dispute it against him. They fight for it hard. Montagna works a hand pass out near Savage. There's 3 disputing it with him though. He's tackled. Hand passes out of the pack. Stephen tried for Jones. Missed him. Oh, Jones tossed it up against the boundary. Lucky to get away with that. And it did go out of play at right half forward for the Saints.
18-1. Hawthorn lead. Terrific start. In it comes. Comes down to Lenny Hayes. Off the left boot. Kicks to full forward. Stephen caught at the back. Hodge outmarks him. Gee, strong Hodgie. Brilliant mark. Goes towards the southern stand side. Goes with the hand rather than the foot. Out to Duray, who gets around Revolt and kicks up short of centre wing. Schoenmakers at the back, but he works it down to Hill. He's got too much pace for Lenny Hayes. Oh, this is no contest. He runs away from Lenny. Well played by Hill. Centering ball. And the mark taken by McAvoy. On to Schoenmakers. The former defender goes for goal on his first game back and misses.
If I was Lenny Hayes, I would have stretched out and pretended to tackle. He was never catching him.
No, you shouldn't be allowed to do that to the elderly.
You should have slowed down. Hill.
Distinct lack of respect.
Kick in marked by Quilts. Hawks by 18. Quilt careful with the kick, but not careful enough. Roughhead chimes in front of Ray. He'll pinch the mark. He lays it off sideways to Birchall, who ran into space 35 from goal and more centrally located.
They didn't make one mistake, they made 2. And then they assumed that he wouldn't kick it. You have a shot at goal. Never assume, because you'll get caught. And certainly did, with Roughhead just chipping it off.
It's the sort of afternoon where they could get a thick spread of goal kickers. And Grant Birchall, he doesn't mind sneaking forward from time to time. This set shot from 40 out, the drop punts, he misses out. He drags it near side and through for a behind. 20 plays 1.
Roughhead won the Coleman last year with 72 goals.
You got him in your dream team?
He scored 1 today. He's had a goal assist. That should have been a goal assist. It was a behind assist. When's he going to line up and kick 8 or 9? The kick only goes to the 50. Hill gets the hand pass. Away to Birchley. Sweeps a ripper. And a shot by Suckling. Crashes into the man in front of him. Bounces St Kilda's way. Well played by Nunes to gather. Hand pass to Jones. Wider afield to Ray. Kicks to half forward. And Revolt on the charge. Takes the mark in between wing and half forward. Gets a lot of the ball this far up the ground. Revolt down the line. Good half-volley pickup by Stephen. Gets the hand pass in to Billings. To full forward, and there's that man again. He's taken another mark, Gibson. He's taken 4 marks, 8 disposals.
50-metre penalty there, Drew.
Well, he hasn't had his 8th disposal yet. It's 4 marks and 7 disposals.
Just the extra numbers
Well,
back. That can't work, can it?
It just cannot work. And we've seen it all year. We've seen it for 2 years.
Gibson up to Rioli, right through the corridor, high in the Schoenmaker's direction.
Well
Roughhead
done, Ruffy.
protects him in, and Schoenmaker's granted right of way.
You know what? That umpire saw that clearly, and he knew that Roughhead had shepherded for him. And quite frankly, he should have been a free kick against Ruffy. But, you know, just the bloke takes the mark, the pressure's on, the umpire makes it blue.
Drew, that's why he's not kicking. Yes, every day of the week.
You said,
Every day of the week.
well played, Ruffy.
Yeah, I do, because I like the protection. But you know what? If the umpire's right there and sees it clearly, that should be. He hasn't had access to the ball.
This would be terrific for Ryan Schoenmaker. He's already had a shot. He's on return from a long absence. He's not already made forward, but this is his go today. And his teammates swarm to him. And the brown and gold in the stand rises to salute the returning Ryan Schoenmakers with a goal.
And congratulations to him. It's been a long journey back for him. He's had a couple of shots on goal. Unfamiliar role that we've seen him in. He usually plays back, but the defensive end settled. Look, you question why Roughhead hasn't kicked or isn't going to kick 70 goals. That's why he's not going to kick 70. You know, disciplined teams, they block. You know, undisciplined teams or teams that are on the rise or developing, that player goes for the flying mark. The other thing is, intercept mark, he looks to centre straight away, get the ball into the hands of someone in a better position. One thing I love about the Hawks is their flexibility in their players. Hodge down back, Mitchell Bruno to go to half back, Gunston was on a wing. You know, just a brilliant outfit.
Roughhead's gone to the bench now, so Schoenmakers and Hale are pretty much isolated at full forward. So open forward line. Smith for the Hawks. Concedes a little bit of ground. Back he goes to Suckling. He kicks it onto the chest of Rioli. The pass is magnificent for Hale, who dives in and marks 40 from goal. That ball never went above Hale's belly button.
You can see it happening too. Just on the turn, he went bang. Oh, it's beautiful.
Gee, what a kick by Cyril. You'll do me if you only get 10 or 12 today. He kicked 4 1/4 here last week. He's warming up for today.
I tell you, if you're in the vicinity of the MCG and you want to see a football team in action, I'd pop in, because this is just, it's outstanding.
They're 4-2 to a point after 16 and a half minutes. This could be their 5th. Hale kicking from 45. Hoisted high and long. Goal. This is a slaughter, 32 to 1.
Oh, they just continue to play football in the manner that you'd love to watch it, and they just don't slacken off. They just continue to play the same way. They give it to the teammates. They shepherd for each other. They work for each other. They share the load down back. They share it through the middle. And to watch Cyril with the ball in his hand is a sight that I'll probably never forget as long as I live. He is one of the special ones, and that kick was something special. It was unbelievable.
5-2 to a behind. I suppose they used to draw big crowds to see the Lions and the Christians, even though you knew how it was going to end, but it was still an entrancing spectacle nonetheless.
Sometimes they got up.
I'm not sure history agrees with that. McAvoy wins the tap. He's on the follow-up. There's a whistle on the play. Mitchell's arm was held. Free kick. Hand pass to Lewis. Hawks inside 50 again. The target this time was Hallahan. He never made it to the drop zone. Ray ran interference, took the intercepting mark. He goes across, half back for Lenny Hayes. Hayes had Nunes on the lead longer, but he went shorter. Geary. He works the hand pass around. Kick was a short one from Akers, and it didn't do the job. Mitchell gets involved for the Hawks. He works it around with Litherland and out to Gunston. Kick coming forward is no good, and Dempster takes the mark.
Now, this is the problem for St Kilda. They're frightened to actually move the ball on.
Inside defensive 50. Slides a little hand pass to Montagna. Kick across the ground to Gwilt. Wilt kicks to centre wing where young Billings takes the mark. Southern stand side. He kicks down the line for Revolt. That's a pretty good move by the Saints to get out of there. Revolt's got some run ahead. Well done by Geary, who marks about 60 metres out. Any tall forwards there? He's got Revolt powering past him. Geary goes to the goal square. There's nobody there for St Kilda. There's 3 or 4 Hawks. It was easy for McAvoy.
And that's where Hawthorn is so good. They're players that aren't involved in the contest or where the ball is, gets to get back and help. The non-ball side players get back and help, and they cover each other so well.
So Suckling had it at the defensive 50. He's given a Shepherd. He goes running away. Hand pass to Duray. He'll cross halfway with the kick. It's in the rough head direction. He removed Delaney from the contest. Delaney got a fist in there, though, and he gets some help. Dempster to Delaney, who works it round with Weller. And now Jones, but under pressure, he's lost it straight to rough head. He gives it to Bruce. Rioli's lurking in the 50. It's out in front of him. Better than he didn't mark and go for the set shot. On the run, he's kicked it for rough head. He's got 5 to beat. So Rioli did set him a task, and Simpkin took the mark for the Saints.
Yeah, that did make it hard for Rough. The kick back to centre half back, where the mark's taken by Curran for the Saints. Spreads it wide to Weller. Tasmanian, who played 32 games for Gold Coast. Nav Weller. Kicks over half back flank. Stanley is there. Schoenmaker's a good spoil, but it's ripped away by Clint Jones for the Saints. Bouncing ball to centre wing. Revolt gathers. Hand pass to Hayes. Back to Revolt. Back to Jones. Back further it goes to Webster. He delivers a good pass. Weller run down from behind. Didn't dispose of it properly. Up higher. Play on. Ball spills here to Gibson. Here come the Hawks again, swarming like bees once more. But a good tackle laid by Isaac Smith. That's a holding the ball. And the free kick goes to Billings in his 4th game, the 18-year-old.
So they scrapped hard to win that back. Billings out across the centre square. Bruce comes with the flight to run interference against Ray. That will be a free kick. He's got support. Geary and Ray conspire out on the southern wing. Ray's kick inside the 50. Stanley leads wide and he takes the mark a couple of steps in from the boundary.
Courage from young kid Billings. He saw the 2 players spare on the outer wing and decided to go, and that's the way they've got to play. They've got to move the defence of Hawthorn. If they want to keep going up and down the line, they're just going to get their third man's going to cut the pass off. They've got to move the defence by moving the ball from side to side on the angles and not handball in the phone box. They've got to be able to create run from behind.
It's going to be hard to get shots on goal, so they're not to be wasted. Reece Stanley from 49 on a really tough angle. It's a good-looking kick. That's a beautiful goal. So St Kilda's first from the prodigious kick of Reece Stanley in time on of the opening turn. 1-1-7, trailing Hawthorn 5-2-32.
As I said, great courage from Billings. Young kid. Probably playing with no fear because he is a young player. He's playing on more instinct than the way he wants to go about it. When you transfer the ball to the other side of the ground, it makes players in front of you on the defensive side have to move. And all of a sudden, holes open up because someone doesn't move enough and someone moves forward too much. What I have noticed is every time they can get it forward to centre, they hit a lead. And that's where Hawthorn aren't poor, but they do allow players to lead up and take marks. So Hawthorn, St Kilda just got to get it forward to centre.
Bounce in the middle, McAvoy. The roughhead's up there as a ruck rover. It's pinched by Stephen for St Kilda. Has a bounce, gets a clip high from Mitchell, rides the bump, kicks from 50, long towards the behind post. And Revolt just poleaxed Gibson before the ball arrived.
I didn't see anything wrong with that. All he did was holding his ground.
Gibson hit the ground as hard as any man I've ever seen. Got the free kick.
That wouldn't have been out of place in a wrestling ring, the way that unfolded. The kick is short for Hill. That's not going to work. Nunes has made the spoil. He tried to get it back to Revolt, but missed his target. And Lake takes the mark. Hallaham's his target on the way out. Akers comes over the top, makes the spoil right against the boundary. Nunes with the opening hand pass to set Hayes into play. He takes a long-range shot at goal. It's out across the face. It's a behind. And the Saints trail by 24 points. Nerily Meadows.
The wind and the rain picking up, boys, so it is getting more and more difficult out there, no doubt about it. Not expecting the lights to probably come on soon as well, because it is getting quite dark.
Oh, well, the first rule is to get the score on the board when you start fine, and it's going to be wet later on, so this is looking awful for the Saints. I remember a grand final like that. Hawthorn beat Melbourne in 88. They started early, it rained for 3 quarters, and it was just an absolute hiding from start to finish. Ray marks for the Saints on centre wing. Short pass. And Stephen, who made a late start to the season with a foot injury, moving pretty well. Back to Gwilt, who had to haul it in one-handed. Since we're half-distance pass, made him work a bit. Still on centre wing. 5-2 to 1-2. Kicked by Gwilt to the 50. Revolt Camp there, outnumbered 2-1. He beats him and centres the ball. Is there anyone there for the Saints? Well, we can say no. And it's gathered here by Hallahan. He goes back. Cleared by Gibson. McAvoy against his old side. I think he's licking his lips and having a terrific time. 5-2 to 1-2.
He's at the defensive 50. He's had a sustained look to the side, but couldn't find anything short. So the long kick down the line. Hodge against Gwilt. Hodge edges Gwilt underneath it. Burgoyne comes through, puts it out in front of the path of Hodge, who kicked it off the ground and out of bounds on the full. So that didn't work. Bit fancy. Jones with the resulting free kick for St Kilda. Hugs the boundary. Stanley's going to have a couple to fly against. Spoils are made. Hayes at the bottom, didn't get hold of it. Weller does a good job. Hand passes over his shoulder. He'll take either a teammate or a boundary. It's the boundary. It'll be thrown in at the interchange gates.
Scoreboard says slippery when wet due to the wet weather. Watch your step to say stay safe. The players are reading that. Hale in front. Palms it down. Shark by Stephen of the Saints. He's wrapped up at ground level. The umpire says, give it to me, I'm going to throw it up. So Roughhead playing on the ball, won't kick 72 goals from here. Up it goes. Worked down by Stanley to Montagna. Kick goes nowhere. Knocked on by Hodge. Here come the Hawks again. The hand pass wide to Roughhead. Up past a half forward. Is just knocked down by Geary for the Saints on defensive 50. Hurriedly to the boot. Nearly to Montagna. At ground level taken by Akers. Back to Montagna. Up towards centre wing. Curran. Good move by the Saints. Stanley marks and goes for a gallop. And kicks it long. The only hope is Longer. Lake is there. Longer punches to the goal. Here comes Rui. Oh, he's run down the tackle. Did he have it up? It's gone through for a behind. The umpire says that is a rush behind to the Saints.
Hawks by 23. St Kilda doing a good job in the last 10 minutes or so. Lake dropped the kick in. Longer comes to tackle him, so he has to hand pass it back to Litherland in a hurry. From the back pocket for the Hawks. Litherland clears the defensive area. Sean Makers his target. Ray made the spoil. Onto it comes Webster. Hand pass for Ray out against the boundary. Onto the left boot. High inside the 50. Longer moved underneath it. It's going to be one now at ground level. Birchall's all over it. Hand pass to Hodge. Across the face of defensive goal for Gibson. And out now to Suckling. They've got runners and Birchall's leading the brigade outside the defensive 50. He takes the mark. Burgoyne wants it long over the back of a contest with Dempster. Sets himself and takes the mark. Protected it beautifully. He's got players inboard or down the line. He goes down the line for Suckling, whose kick inside the 50 is onto the chest of Bruce, who couldn't help but mark.
How well are they running?
He's wandered off his line. He's called to play on. He runs straight to the man in front of him. Hand pass to Hill. Kick the full forward. They've got 2-on-1, the Hawks. And Schoenmakers at the top of the goal square takes the mark.
Well, the reason he wanted to play on was because there was a spare man in the goal square, in their forward 50 goal square. I don't know how that happens, but that's why he played on. And again, he walked off his line looking for someone in a better position.
How about Schoenmakers? In his career, he's kicked 5 goals coming here today. This is his 3rd shot at goal in the opening term. He's having a picnic as a forward. Schoenmakers kicks his 2nd. And the Hawks push it out to 29.
The new buddy. He's playing in the ponytail. Yeah, he kicked 5 goals in 64 games prior to today.
He's a brute of a man too. He's huge and really well put together. He's got a nice ponytail as well to go with it.
What do you think of that look?
I don't like it much. I'd love it, actually. I wouldn't mind it. But,
on a girl?
I don't know. Anyway, so, look, Bruce was a very unusual what he was trying to do. He tried to dodge and weave, and the bloke ran straight into the bloke on the mark, but then got away quite quickly and moved it forward. So, look, they are great to watch. I was just watching a Burgoyne then. That little chip pass over the top. The bloke did not change stride, and I think it was Suckling who ran onto that ball. It was unbelievable.
The marks are 36-20. Hale wins in the middle. It comes down to Montagna. Hayes gets a touch. It spills to Stephen. There was going to be a free to Lenny. Advantage taken by Stephen. A good kick. No, it's too high for Revolt. And it clears him and goes out of bounds inside the forward 50. 28 and a half minutes played in the first quarter. One-way traffic, 6-2 to 1-3. Nerily?
It's not all good news for Hawthorn. Sam Mitchell came off limping a couple of minutes ago and went straight down into the rooms.
He's been quiet. Ball comes to the back of the pack. It's taken by Lewis in game 200. Kick goes nowhere. Montagna gathers and gets it back. Puts it out in open space. Gathered by Hayes. Off to Stephen, who's working hard for the Saints. His kick is good down the line to Weller. And he's marked 49 from goal. He centres the ball to Montagna, who marks... Oh, yes, it was a mark. He had it long enough before the spoil arrived. And he's right in the corridor, in front of goal, 35 metres out. Actually, he kicks this, and it's 6-2 to 2-3. It's not quite hiding. It looked just the way the game was played. They've settled things in the last 10 minutes, the Saints. Montagna goals, does he? Yes, sneaks it inside the left-hand goal post. And they go to quarter time, not completely embarrassed, certainly outplayed. The Hawks by 23. It's 6-2-38 to St Kilda, 2-3-15. 2 goals to Ryan Schoenmakers, playing his first game for the year. 1 each to Roughhead, Burgoyne, Hill and Hale. And for St Kilda, their goals have come from Stanley and Montagna.
This is Grandstand AFL on ABC, Local Radio, Radio Australia and Grandstand Digital.
We all remember a bit about Noah's Ark. The animals going in 2 by 2, the great flood, the Ark itself.
Joanna Lumley embarks on an epic journey of discovery.
Noah and the Great Flood is one of the oldest stories we know.
The BBC presents Joanna Lumley, The Search for Noah's Ark.
It's something that's fascinated me all my life. And in this film, I'm going to show you why.
At ABC shops, centres, ABC Shop Online and DVD retailers.
Saturday footy.
Grandstand AFL.
Lewis the hand pass to Gunson. Gee, they handled the ball beautifully. And a kick to pull forward in front. Roughhead can't take the mark, but he gets after the crumb. Hand pass away to Burgoyne, who's covered up the park. And Burgoyne nails the goal in the opening 30 seconds.
Well, came along here to see some skills. You saw it absolutely perfectly there, and that was just a brilliant piece of play of team play. Handball's quick, in spots, in their eyes, nothing flash, nothing fancy, but just gorgeous.
Through the pack goes Hill, hand pass to Roughhead, at full forward, kicks it over the defence and bounces it home for the Hawks' second. The second of plenty, you fancy, the way the first 5.5 minutes has gone.
Long left-footed to full forward. Roughhead, the hands once, twice, not 3 times, but he rose his own bill, gets a hand pass up. Bruce snares it just inside the line, hand pass into Hill, who steps the goal from the goal line. Unbelievable by Roughhead, Bruce and Hill.
Reece Stanley from 49 on a really tough angle. It's a good-looking kick. That's a beautiful goal. So St Kilda's first from the prodigious kick of Reece Stanley in time on of the opening term.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Local Radio, online and on ABC Grandstand Digital.
Hawthorn by 23 points at quarter time. Plays just underway in the other game this afternoon in Canberra. The Giants, 1 goal. Port Adelaide, 1 goal. So it's all tied up early. Merrily Meadows on the boundary.
Some big news down here, boys. We heard Sam Mitchell went down into the rooms. Well, I can tell you he hasn't emerged, but the red subs vest has. So I'll keep you updated on that. Also, Nick Revolt finished that term on the bench, getting treatment on his left calf. He spent quite a bit of time with doctors, but he is out with the huddle now. So hopefully he'll be sweet for the rest of the game.
Mark McClure and Scott West.
Well, there'll be no risk policy on Sam Mitchell. There's too much at the end of this season for them to risk him in round 7. So, smart move if he does put the red vest on. Look, there was just precision from Hawthorn. It was just an absolute pleasure to watch. And the one word that comes to mind when I'm watching them live is just discipline. You know, that they're disciplined to centre the ball, to put the ball into a better position, the third man up. You know, tapping the ball out to players in better position. They're blocking for one another. They're covering off. Just an example of covering off. I know Mitchell hasn't had a lot of the ball, but Curran's his direct opponent, tagging him. Every time he gets an opportunity to get off Mitchell, he has. When St Kilda get the ball, he runs to a position where he may be used. Sam Mitchell doesn't go with him. But what happens is the Hawthorn team cover for Sam. Sam just drops behind the footy and allows Curran to get in a non-dangerous position. He actually runs himself out of position. So they just cover off for each other, and they're just so disciplined in the way they go about it. And, we spoke about before the game about St Kilda needing to play 6 forwards, or even the numbers up in their end, because, we look at the stats, and Birchall, Suckling, Gibson and Hodge have been Hawthorn's 4 top possession winners. And it just shows that they're getting third man up, they spread beautifully, they change directions, they use angles, and they just go from one end of the ground to the other too often, which is just showing up the fact that they've got no pressure in their forward line. For St Kilda, we just mentioned moving numbers up. When they looked at hit up targets forward to centre, Lake and Gibson just don't go with them. They concede, but what they do is they overuse the ball at half back, which at times puts the leading player out of position. So they've got to get more direct, use the angle. Don't go sideways, don't go backwards, go forward. Even if it's long, get field position. Get it out of your defensive end to make it harder for Hawthorn to score.
That's easier said than done, I think, against these mob.
It's easy up here.
It's very simple. But the Saints, I thought they were okay. I didn't expect them to be this close at quarter time. They were blown apart by the really good work of Gibson down back, who sets it up. And I love the start of Lewis at the start when he actually hit into space twice, sent a message to his teammates, we're going to do the same stuff, don't matter who we play against all the time. Hodge, of course, continues to play well. Their understanding amongst each other is just superb, and they give every opportunity. All the things you talked about, they smother, they chase, they tackle, they do the lot, and they're a difficult side to beat. And the Saints are working hard. I really like the kids. Young Akers is out of touch. Billings has got into it as well. You can see Curran and all those sort of guys going about their business around the place, and they all look competent, but they're just not cohesive, not as cohesive as the opposition at this stage, and that'll come in time.
And one of the things we spoke about before the game again, were the marks, uncontested mark change, and they've had 36 to 22 marks. That's just their ability to be able to use the footy and hit targets, and that's where Hawthorn have got to be. St Kilda, sorry. When they start slowing the ball up, they've got to filter through and get one. They've got to cover off.
You'll see them now. This will be a rainy day, and there'll be one-on-one all over the place. And if the ball will bounce straight, you'll see that this will be easier for the Saints to find their man, because there'll be mistakes all over the place for the Hawthorn. There has to be, or there may be.
Narrowly, what happened with Mitchell?
Sam Mitchell looks like a hamstring injury, so the substitute Billy Hartung is on the field. Nick Riewoldt on the field for the Saints as well.
Heavy rain falling at the start of the second term. Hallahan wins the first disposal for the Hawks. Up to half forward, it bounced off the shins of Puopolo. Akers took it, he was dispossessed. Bruce working through the pack. Hand passed in hope. Puopolo couldn't get hold of it. Hurried kick on the way out by Geary for the Saints. It'll reach the members' wing, or just about. Jones runs into Litherland, holds his ground well. Hand passes out the back to Montagna, sideways to Gwilt. Kick around the corner without looking. It should be intercepted by Duray, although Stanley's got other ideas. He lays a really strong tackle. Lake and Hodge working close confines against the boundary, and ultimately over that line.
And what Stanley needs to do there, if he sees a spare player in front of him, he's got to come up and engage him. And then the player then behind him comes and engages his play. The deepest has to be the loose. Don't let the bloke on centre wing be a loose player.
Boundary throw in right below us. McAvoy gets it to the back. Hodge attempts one off the ground. Had a bit of an airy, but still there. Oh, gee. Stephen fights hard for the ball. Slips out the back door. Taken by Montagna. He's taken by one arm. He's kicked back into a pack. Right on centre wing. Off the ground goes Burgoyne. But he had a 7-9. He needed a 9. It's out on the full. 6-2 to 2-3.
So the Saints with a chance to set up here. Webster with the free kick. Oh, he's run into the field of play and then hesitated. He's got to get around to Puopolo. It's his kick away at least, but it's not a good kick down the line. It's over the top of Akers and slips out of bounds. So the pack moves St Kilda's side of the middle marginally. Longer against McAvoy. McAvoy plants himself in front. It's the tap down low to Lenny Hayes. Montagna couldn't get it off the ground, went Burgoyne. Same for Puopolo, up to Roughhead. Cleans hands to Gunston. He hands it over to Hill. Couldn't quite find the way forward, so sideways instead to Suckling. Has a look at the set-up deep forward. He's gone for Hale with a mighty kick. It'll slip off the turf and go through for a behind. Must have covered 70 metres by the time it bounced and rushed at goal. Suckling didn't miss by far.
Well, the rain's pretty heavy now, and already the surface is slippery. We've seen some soccer kicks off the ground already at the start of this second quarter. Lewis, a hand pass away. Here comes Hill from the 50. He kicks it blindly to full forward. Dempster takes the mark in defence for the Saints. Sweeps the hand pass away to Stephen. Touches down rather than going the bounce, which mightn't come back at the moment. He's cornered in a good tackle. He's taken over the boundary line, but the ball stays in. The tackle there was Hallahan. Saints have it again. Inside defensive 50. Stephen tries to get around McAvoy. Come on, Jack. He kicks over half-back flank. Diving attempt to mark by Litherland near the boundary line and spills off in, out of bounds.
He just couldn't find anyone. He had 3 or 4 goes to try and get round someone. He just couldn't find anyone to kick it to.
Well, his indecision was forced by the beautiful defensive shape that Hawthorn had in front of him.
At the throw-in, Hale down. Hayes is onto it. Hand pass was ineffective. Bruce to Hodge in the pack. His kick was smothered by Hayes on the way through. It fell the way of Montagna, who kicked it blindly around the wing. It might reach Revolt, although Lake stands in the way of it. Works it up to Gunston. Feeds it out the back to Birchall. And he measures off the kick sideways now for Burgoyne. Merrily, an injury?
Yeah, Jaron Geary's just gone into the rooms holding his right shoulder. It looks as though he's the problem. So whether it's dislocation or a break, we'll find out a little later.
Waited. Hallahan dropped a simple mark on centre wing, but there are excuses in these conditions. It comes to Lewis. Hand pass into Gunston. He fumbles. Puopolo gathers. Hand pass to Hill, who kept running. And Hill should have nailed the goal, but hit the post. They recovered from a few fumbles, and Hill made it look good until his final kick. Hawthorn 6-4 to 2-3.
And the way they recover is they've got such great support around the footy. So whether they drop the mark or whether they fumble the handball or whether the ball goes to ground, they've always got numbers there.
In Canberra, it's the Giants 3-2-20, leading Port Adelaide 2-1-13 in the early stages there.
If you're neutral, you're barracking for the Giants today?
Port's such a good story, I'm not sure. Webster plays onto himself, went the long kick on the way out. The Hawks with a chance to turn this over, though, and Burgoyne will. Kicks back to full forward. Roughhead sets himself. He got clipped high by Delaney, and it must be a free kick. Roughhead at full forward from the mid-zone umpire, who had a clear view of it.
That's a perfect day for Roughhead. To play in front is the key today. You actually get in front, you get the defenders all over the back here. The ball drops short as it always does in the wet, and that was perfect positioning.
Roughhead at full forward, kicking for his second. He guides it straight through the middle. Hawthorn again by 31 points with the first of the second term. 7-4 to 2-3.
How's Delaney going? He's had one touch, gave away a free kick, so Dream Team is -1.
Savage is not much better.
Savage has had one touch.
Yes, he has, and that's the 2 guys who've been recruited to this footy club. Look, the conditions have changed. The smoothness of the game is going to change. We're going to see people who want to get in front, run straight, in lines, the ball will bounce straight through, and that's why I was talking about Roughhead there being in the perfect position up forward. Don't come from behind, be in front, because the ball does drop short, and then defenders do offend. They do actually offend you and get a free kick, so he did that beautifully.
Lights are on, the rain is falling at the MCG. McAvoy wins the hit out. He works it down underneath. Hodge kick toward half forward. Spilled there by Isaac Smith for the Hawks. Plucked off the deck well for the Saints by Webster. His kick in towards the centre square. Gathered here by Akers. Very high ball. It comes forward of the wing. Clint Jones underneath it. But at the last moment, it's knocked away by Litherland. The old 1-2 was worked by Birchall with Lake. Across the ground he goes, and they'll attack from the southern stand side. Suckling. Kicks beautiful. Rioli. Yeah,
he hurt himself.
He turned on the wet turf, and he's pulled a groin muscle or done something. He's back at half-back. Hawks have it up centre wing. Centering ball is magnificent for Burgoyne. Well, Hodge is already gone, and if Mitchell rather, and if Rioli's gone as well, they'll finish one short on the bench here today, the Hawks. But they're playing beautiful football. Bruce dives in and marks forward to the wing. Kicks it long towards full forward. Roughhead is there. Crunch of bodies. It comes underneath to Puopolo. He tried to dart through the pack. He's tackled high. Free kick right in front. Narrowly.
Jaron Geary's been subbed out of the game. It's actually his right elbow, so they're heavily icing that at the moment, which means that Josh Saunders is in. So both subs activated very early.
Gee, game of attrition at the moment. Paul Puopolo right in front. You'd like to say couldn't miss this. Only 25 metres, but wet ball, slippery turf. And he doesn't miss. The Hawks go to 8-4, leading the Saints 2-3, and we've been playing 7.5 minutes in the second quarter.
Well, we spoke about Hawthorn being precise and, military style in their delivery of the footy early in the game when it was dry. They've really adapted well in this second quarter to the conditions. What they've done is they've got some taller players deep. They've held them deep so that they can get the ball in long and quick. We saw we've seen 2 free kicks now. One to a player in a marking contest over the shoulder because of panic from the defenders, and again a crumbing player getting a free kick for over the shoulder again from panic defenders. No overuse through the middle of the ground anymore. It's just get it in long and get a contest.
Scott West on Grandstand AFL. Cyril Rioli stayed on the ground, but you can see by the way that he's flexing his leg that he's not entirely happy with his physical state. In the middle, Burgoyne went off the ground. It didn't amount to anything. Coming through was Saunders, who's just come into the game, didn't get it. Bruce to Burgoyne, who forced his way through, pushed the hangers on away and delivered up into the pocket. The defence scrambles after it. Dempster leads the way, but it slips out of play. Left forward pocket for Hawthorn. All players in one half of the field and most in the Hawks 50. Roughhead guides it to ground. Couldn't quite follow up. Delaney, it slips away from him. Webster gets hold of it. High ball on the way out. The Hawks have numbers reasonably well set. Hill trapped it, but there's some clever work being done off the ground by the Saints. That is Curran, who's doing a good job, and he's opened the play up for Stephen, but he didn't look, and he's kicked to half forward, where again it's all Hawthorn. Hale marks.
Any amount of Hawks back there. Hale kicks it backwards to Liverland in this week. Out towards the southern stand wing he goes. That's well done. Taken by Hartung. Off he goes to Hodges, straightens him up, kicks long to full forward. Roughhead uses his body, but can't take the mark. Getting back there for the Saints in defence, Simpkins sees the ball to the boundary line and a throw in alongside the behind post. Hawthorn 8-4, St Kilda 2-3, the margin 37.
Boundary thrown in the right forward pocket for the Hawks. Roughhead in front, works it down in the Burgoyne direction. They did pile in various directions. Schoenmakers, hand pass out the back to Hill, who had a fumble. Smith against the boundary, shares it with Birchall and gets it back. Smith's kick is not terribly neat for Hodge, couldn't gather around the laces, toes it back to Smith, who then kicked it further backwards off the ground to Lake. Lake pushes away the man rushing at him. He works it around with Smith, and now to Litherland. They gave up 70 metres in all of that, but the ball reaches the 50 again as it bounces out of play off the boot of Litherland.
Looks like being a real slog for the rest of the afternoon. Just steady rain falling and the surface is slippery. Boundary throw in.
Burgoyne.
Bunted forward by Burgoyne. He puts the ball out into the open. Hartung, the sub, on the ground, on debut. He gathers and fires from 15, and his chance for glory goes by because he missed to the left.
Burgoyne off the ground.
Unbelievable. Yeah. In mid-air.
Well, Billy Hartung won't get an easier chance at his first goal in the AFL. And such was the moment that he couldn't quite grasp it. Gwilt's on the long kick into play. Longer against Hale. Hale makes a good spoil. Stephen knocks it further St Kilda's way, but Birchall's onto it for the Hawks. He shares it around with Duray and gets it back. Opens play up into the middle for Gibson. Gibson can go out the far side where Hartung works away. He takes the mark. Has a look up toward the 50. He balked the short option and goes long to the square instead. Roughhead's in the pack. Slips through the hands of Dempster. Schoenmakers out of the pack. Kicks his third. And by day's end, he might double his career tally. Because he looks a menace at full forward. Hawthorn 9-5 to St Kilda 2-3.
Now, Wes, you said it before. They set up tools up forward, and then what they're doing is they're banging to the top of the square. It's either Roughhead or Schoenmakers or Hale. Ball hits the ground, and then they rush to that zone. On a wet day, that's a perfect play. And Hartung, who had a short to Lewis, he said, no, I'm not going there. We're going straight to the top of the square, and went bang. And Schoenmakers was the recipient in the end. But it's all set up with a plan, and everyone knows what everyone else is doing. And they do it extremely well.
Gee, they're running to Schoenmakers to congratulate him every time. This is a big welcome back to the seniors. If they run to him every time he kicks a goal, they might be exhausted by the end. In the centre of the ground, Puopolo tries one off the ground, doesn't go anywhere. Spills out towards the logo. They fight for it until Jack Stephen emerges for the Saints. A high ball, not a lot of distance, still inside the centre square. It's punched forward for the Hawks by Litherland. Back to the circles, gathered by Puopolo. He should be good in these conditions. He's close to it. Kick towards half forward. Marker's drop, comes to the back. Kicks out towards centre wing. And this ball's going to go out right below us here. And happy to see it out was Billy Hartung, kid from Mornington, 19-year-old. Started as the sub on debut and he replaced Mitchell.
Inside 50s, 21-12, 9 goals to 2. Hawthorn by 44 points. Thrown in, came the way of Puopolo. He's dragged down in the tackle by Montagna. Was able to release it. Hallahan trying to force his way through. He's held up by a couple and brought down. In Canberra, still the opening term. The Giants 3-4-22, the Power 3-1-19. Pulled up on the members' wing. McAvoy won the tap, but Stephen sharks the footy for the Saints. Kick up toward half forward, gathered cleanly off the turf by Lake. He gives it to Hartung, knocked out of his grasp, but he goes and wins it back. He shared it with Hallahan and then moved on. Now Puopolo against the boundary. Kick up to half forward. He was floored as he did so. Delaney's got to be good. He's got to get it out over the boundary, and he did enough. Roughhead was sweating on him. If it had got past him, the full forward was off toward goal.
Narrowly.
The rain has eased and eventually stopped down here, boys, but the damage has been done.
How about the little hand pass out by Burgoyne to Puopolo, darting down the boundary? Just sensational. Burgoyne's playing a whale of a game. Lays a tackle here. The umpire says it was high, so he's knocked him off for a free kick. And Simpkin will take the free. His brother might have been playing for Hawthorn today, but he was dropped. Out of defence comes Burgoyne. And a nice mark taken here for the Saints by Billings, Jack Billings.
Well, I don't agree with that
handball. Take the mark, it's out of bounds.
Well, I don't agree with that handball to Montagna. You've got a guy who's in a controlled environment. He just kicks it. Montagna gets it, he's under pressure straight away.
Well, Lee would have been calling for it 100 miles an hour to build up his tally, that's all it is.
Jack Stephen, he's working really hard, the best and fairest. Gets it back to Ray, and here's a tackle and
crunching tackle.
And Bruce lays a terrific tackle on the forward 50. And with a wet ball, he's probably too far out. He'd be looking for some movement up inside the 50. There's a very crowded area. Hawks going to the city end. He hoists it high. Hale has some chance. Hands to it. Rioli paddles it out towards the boundary line. Roughhead leads the race. He's cleaned up. Didn't have the ball. Play on, said the umpire. It's cleared out of there for the Saints by Simpkin, but only to the 50. Chance for the Hawks taken by Birchall. He palms off a would-be tackler and he's gone holding the ball.
Curran made the tackle and he made it stick. He goes out to Simpkin through the defensive 50 with a kick for Montagna. Around the southern wing the Saints go. They haven't been forward often in this term. Ray takes the mark. Savage is running forward over the top. So too is Schneider. Ray's held it up so the defence has been able to scramble and set itself. And he kicks it into the man on the mark anyway. Gibson's smother sees it out of play. We're not making anything of that. Throw it in on the southern wing. McAvoy to the front. Free kick against Stanley. Bit of hanging on. So it'll be McAvoy's ball for the Hawks.
Off to Hill. Played against his brother in the granny last year, and the younger Hill won the premiership. This one goes off to Birchall. He kicks long to full forward, and Gunston is out in the pocket and takes the mark. Hasn't been in the play all that much. Gunston, he's about 25 metres out from goal. Might be kicking from 30. Coming up for his 7th possession. That was his 2nd mark. And so far, scoreless. While the Hawks have kicked 9-5 to 2-3. Gunston, not too tough an angle, steers it but misses to the near side, through for a minor score. So 9 goals, 660 to 2-3-15. 16.
No score yet.
No score this quarter for the Saints.
Port has put on a spurt, 5-1-31, leading the Giants 3-4-22 late in the opening term in Canberra. The kick in, there wasn't a whole lot of movement. It was aimed for Delaney. Hodge got there with a double-fisted spoil and punches it out of play 40 away from the Hawthorn goal.
Well, they haven't been inside 50 this quarter.
No, they haven't. And they're
Not
just
once.
keeping them in there, and they just punch it back in and set up again.
So the Hawks have kicked 3 goals in 17 minutes, but you fancy there's plenty more in this term for them. unless the Saints can alter the flow. Jones gets hold of it from Webster, kick around the wing. Lake was brave, put himself in front of a charging Revolt, takes the mark, straight back inside the 50 for the Hawks. They need a jumper, Roughhead obliged, got up there, couldn't bring it down. Hallahan at ground levels, caught in the tackle of Montagna. It'll be balled up 40 out from the Hawthorn goal.
Sam Mitchell off the ground in the first quarter and officially subbed out at quarter time. There's a hold and over the shoulder in the ruck contest. Goes to St Kilda. Jones takes advantage and there's no advantage in it. Hand pass back into a pack. It comes back to Clint Jones. His hand pass now comes out wide. Saunders, you're in heaps of bother. Bruce works it well. Taken to ground by Ray. The umpire comes in and will haul it up. In between wing and half forward for the Hawks. The inside 50s for the game. 25-12. Roughhead in ruck. Wins it. Smith gets a trip from Clint Jones. Umpire didn't see anything in that. The ball goes out down towards the 50.
What Hawthorn are really good at, and you saw that in the last incident when the ball was held up, 3 St Kilda players tackled the one player. They're very good at getting the right amount of numbers inside the contest and outside the contest. That's why they get their run.
Hayes under the pack. It landed with Montagna, whose kick was smothered. Back inside the Hawks 50 as a result. McAvoy working hard. Puopolo, the same task. Out to Burgoyne. Flips it out to Hartung. Has the chance to guide it inside the 50. Couldn't find Schoenmakers. It is a loose ball, though. Nunes has got a bit of a task to do. Bruce against him. Bruce almost pulled it clear. Does take possession. Hand passed in the direction of Hartung. Smith picks it up off the turf, kick to full forward. No mark for Lewis. Delaney with a hand pass. Didn't do Weller any favours. Having a devil of a time getting hold of it. Webster's dragged down. Still they try the Saints. They might be overwhelmed here. Such is the pressure from the Hawks despite a 45-point lead. The umpire decides it's a bit of a mess and will need to be balled up 40 out from goal.
Oh, they surround the area and there's 2 or 3 fight and the rest stay just out for that little handball that just gets messed up. It's really well set up.
Longer wins the hit out. Comes to Curran of the Saints. Off the ground he goes near the circles. Birchall cuts him off. Through Gibson it goes.
How does he get out there on his own?
Burgoyne on the 50. Marks near the boundary line. Short pass to Bruce. Bruce thought of the centering ball. He might still think of it. But he's going back to have a look at the goals at the city end.
How many inside 50s this quarter, Drew, please, for the Hawks?
15-0. 15-0. Bruce goes for goal from 45 and kicks it from wide out. His first for the day. And it sounds like they're booing, but they're roosting. It is 10-6 to 2-3.
Well, and so I was asked how was he out so clear? It's called ball watching. One from the St Kilda midfielder who's on him. But it's also called predictability. They know they got one back. Gibson's free. I want them to play one-on-one footy now. It's gone from the time of tactical involvement in this game. It is now, let's go and see who can play on who and make players responsible for each other. And Stanley, go and stand next to Gibson. Don't get too far off him. Lead up at the footy, make him accountable. And Burgoyne knew that. He knew that they had one extra, so he could go out freely to the wing.
4-4 in this term. Roughhead into the middle. Just had a fresh area at the clearance. Towed forward by Lewis, but cut off by Akers. His kick wobbles out to the wing for the Saints. Jones leads the chase. Hills after him. And that will end over the boundary. It's quarter time in Canberra. The Power by 11 points. 5-3-33 to 3-4-22 the Giants. And at the southern stand. At the throw-in. Both ruckmen had a share of it. Roughhead against Stephen at ground level. Nunes had a little fumble. It's slipping around with the rain falling again. And nothing decisive from any of that. It's near enough to half forward for the Hawks. Lights in full effect at the MCG on a dull and deteriorating afternoon weather-wise. And just a pile of humanity over the ball.
This was the forecast for this morning. I look at the weather radar and I couldn't see it coming. And I reckon they've nailed it just about to the minute. Lewis, third man up in game 200. He works it down to Hallahan. Hand pass out wide to Roughhead. Disciplined kick to the goal square. Didn't quite get there and chopped off by Akers. Young man on debut for the Saints.
I
He
like
kicks
him.
to the 50. The Hawks have numbers, and a good spoil was put on it, and the ball's gone out of bounds just to make sure, Gunston, that it wasn't going anywhere but other than on Hawthorn's forward line. On you, Jack.
They reconvene up at the 50 for the throw-in. McAvoy knocks it down to the front. Hill races towards the boundary to gather. Couldn't halt his momentum once he took the ball. And we'll do the same again. So for the most part, fans have huddled up under shelter. Some of the hardy ones sitting in their plastic ponchos and enduring the rain. At the throw-in, lovely tap down from McAvoy, defensive side of the pack to Hodge, who kicks to full forward. It must be a free kick to Roughhead, who was banged over the head. Play on. Shoulder makers to Bruce. There's no way goal side there, so backward he goes to Burgoyne. He takes the mark 55 out from goal or thereabouts.
Burgoyne, Birchall and Gibson are just absolutely destroying it.
Burgoyne might have to have a shot here with so many players chalking up the 50. The mark is set right on the digits, left of centre. No, Burgoyne waited, he was patient, and Birchall provides the target about 5 metres closer to goal.
And he can get home from there. See, there's another one. They just push back into that square and they let another opportunity go by. They just continue to keep asking the question of their teammates. Can you hit me with the ball? Yeah, I can. And Birchall gets hit.
Long range shot. Grant Birchall right on the 50. He lets fly with a drop punt, which is left all the way. He's second behind of the afternoon. It's the Hawks by 52. Merrily.
He's starting to really belt down now, boys, so it's set in.
And how's your Paris bag?
Hopefully up here.
He's not down there.
The overcoat.
Geez, you're a tough man, Mark.
The kick-in's not great. Hasn't got to the 50 as yet. Savage gets his second touch for the game, I reckon. And the ball comes out wide. And the short pass up the ground by Hayes. Comes to Weller. Hand pass to himself. Then tumbles over. He was legged, said the umpire, so charity free kick. Now, the Saints going to get inside 50. This is a free on the centre wing. Weller kicks it hard and low.
Yep.
Crashes through the hands. It comes to Savage. He hand passes up Stephen. He runs away from the forward line. Gets it back to Montagna. They're inside 50 by about 3 metres. And Hawthorn mark. Play on, says the umpire. And here's a shot by Billings. Unguarded goal square. Wet turf. The ball skims and doesn't quite make it. Hodge gets back there.
That backspin.
He's got Hartung lurking for him in the back pocket. He's going to have to kick long down the line. Hartung takes a couple of liberties out close to the boundary, laid it off to Gunston and then gets it back. So Hartung, a real dashing move, but a poor kick going forward. Straight to Farron Ray of the Saints. He works the hand pass to Dempster. Kick to Stanley, unmanned at centre half forward. He's heading out into the pocket. Revolt will arrive late in the pack, so will Gibson. Camped underneath it was Billings. He got skittled. Gibson trying to pull it out at ground level. His hand pass towards the boundary. Gunston plays for the line and gets it there. 45 from the St Kilda goal.
Revolt limping.
He probably ran at a pack he should have stayed back from. I think Billings would have marked that.
Oh, Gibbo smashed the pack completely.
Longer wins the hit out to Stephen. Outside the 50 it goes. Hartung goes hard at it. Goes straight past it. Gathered by Savage. Backwards he goes to Jones. And his kick up just outside the 50 is marked by Schneider. Near the boundary line. Hoisted high. Forward pocket job. Easy for Suckling, who just camped himself underneath it. Held a chest mark.
Here they go again.
Yeah, kick on the way out is a good one. It came over the shoulder of Hallahan, who charges onto it and gathers out of half back. That's Litherland. He's had a bounce, make it 2. 3 for Litherland, who's the ball carrier. Goes deep inside the 50. He kicked it over the top of Bruce and Gwilt, maybe for field position. And out of play 10 metres around from the behind post.
Maybe because he was tired. He came from back pocket right through the half-forward flank. That's a long way.
And Revolt chased him all the way. Look at the two of them. They've had it.
Right forward pocket for the Hawks. Rough head against Stanley in the ruck. Roughhead comes up with it, gets it to his left boot, spills away out across the face of goal. Schoenmakers tracks it back with Simpkin, but it's out of bounds on the opposite side of the goal.
St Kilda still scoreless for the quarter, and the Hawks have added 4 goals 5 in the wet. Throw in near the behind post. McAvoy in front. Comes through to Jones of the Saints. Hand pass out wide to Akers. He can't keep it alive. Over the boundary line it goes for a throw in. Spectators have gone back under cover. There's a few brave hearts sitting out with ponchos close to the action, but most huddled back deep in the stands. The throw in, McAvoy to Hodge. Socket out of the air by Smith, goes nowhere. Now it comes to Duray. The blue boots kick hard into the ball. What a mark that is by Gunston. A contested mark. He came from behind. Eyes only for the ball. He's come up limping. That's a beauty.
And that's where Hawthorn are so flexible in their ability to be able to change their team around. Plays in different roles. You know, we saw Roughhead through the middle of the ground. Gunston goes deep. If it's not Gunston deep, it's Hale deep. If it's not him, Roughhead goes back forward. We've seen Stratton play that role as well today. So the flexibility within their team is outstanding.
Jack Gunston looking for his first goal today. Not far off centre. 25 out. Kicks the goal with ease. High fives all around. I think later in the day they might be lining up to get everybody on the goal kickers list. They're 11-7 to 2-3.
Yeah, they're ruthless, the Hawks. They're just not going to let St Kilda anywhere near them. They've got a couple of inside 50s that it was like 5 metres over the line. That wouldn't even count in the real terms. And then Gunston, he's the best kick, one of the best kicks for goal, and a set shot in the competition. Just bangs it through easy, but a good mark. They just refuse to let the opposition have the ball or touch the ball. It's a very good sign if you're a Hawk supporter, because come September, I reckon they'll be roundabouts again.
58 points. Hawthorn's lead closing in on half-time. Tossed up now in the middle, given the soft surface underneath. Nothing from it, other than a tap for Stanley. Hodge still barking instructions as to what the right setup is here. McAvoy puts it down to him. Hayes hangs onto him. Stephen with a hand pass didn't result in possession though. So on the follow-up, the Saints gather it through Weller, who kicks out wide to half forward, and it bounces out of play.
I remember getting into trouble by saying, well, this bloke should be used to the conditions. He comes from Tasmania. Tasmanians all rail against you when they say that. They quote rainfalls. And
55 from the St Kilda goal, and no time for anything. So a shutout in that term. Hawthorn added 5 goals 5 and conceded nothing. And at half-time, it's the Hawks by 58 points. 11-7-73 to St Kilda 2-3-15. And that lead of 23 points at quarter-time becomes 58 at the half. The goal kickers, it's a thick spread. 8 goal kickers for the Hawks already. 3 for Schoenmakers, 2 for Roughhead, and 1 each for Burgoyne, Hill, Gunston, Hale, Brewst and Puopolo for the Saints. Singles to Montagna and Stanley. Hawthorn by 58 points at half-time. In Canberra, it's still Port Adelaide by 11, 5-3 to 3-4 over the Giants. It's all unfolding on Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio, Radio Australia and Grandstand Digital. Scott West and Mark McClure.
Well, Jared, we've seen a display of probably one of the best sides we've seen for some time. They've been up a long time, but in 2 different conditions today. In the first quarter, they took off. They kicked their 6 goals 2 in the first quarter and allowed the opposition the 2 goals 3, which was amazing. And in dry conditions, in beautiful football, good touch. Gibson was outstanding in the first quarter as well. Hodge was terrific. Suckling and Birchall just continued to push the ball from defence. Burgoyne outstanding as well. And then the rain came at quarter time. And we thought, oh, well, it may even up, may change it slightly. That may be a better contest. Well, it was not a better contest. It was an absolute flogging. In the wet, they got better. They changed their game slightly. They kicked long to a position at the top of the square where Roughhead and Schoenmakers and maybe Hale would contest the ball. And then there was a rush of numbers, and they refused to let it out of their inside 50. At one stage, I think it was 15 to 16 to 17 without any inside 50 to St Kilda. And then they got a couple at the end of it. but they just dominated. And, Shalamaker's got a goal, Bruce got a goal, Gunston got a goal, and Ruff hit another one. And they're not smalls. Bruce is probably small, the rest are all tall. So it was quite a interesting quarter of football. Gibson refused. Lake was the other one who continued to knock the ball back into the forward line. Birchall, all of them just continued to just smash the opposition, refused to let them have any ball. And it's a sign of a really good team. No laps. Not interested in you having a touch of the ball. I want to have the whole lot to myself, and they are destroying the substance, the whole, the way that the St Kilda have played in the past. They're in trouble now. They just cannot cope with this side in any way, shape or form. Westy, they are killing them.
No, and you're right. St Kilda set up in a way that really helps the way Hawthorn want to play. They want to get a spare behind the ball. They want to have one of the defenders drop off their man and start their ball movement. We've seen Gibson and Lake do it, Birchall do it, Hodge do it when he's down there for the whole first half. And I'm a little critical of St Kilda not going one-on-one in these conditions. It's a lot harder to use a footy with precision when you are manned up. So let's see how Hawthorn move the ball if there's not as much time and space for the person that they're delivering it to. Let's make sure that Gibson's got a man next to him. So we see Goldsack disciplined enough to play a defensive forward role. Well, Stanley, go and stand next to Gibson. Every time there's an opportunity to lead up on him. Every time there's an opportunity to lead up on Lake, lead up on him, because that's where they're susceptible to get scored against really good teams who will expose their players that want to drop off. They play 6 forwards. And I know people out there will go, well, then they'll just get beaten worse. But you know what? They're winning their fair share of ball around the stoppage. But what they're doing is they're hacking it forward, they're under pressure, and they're kicking to outnumber. If you get an even number, at least you might get a contest, ball up, reset. Then you get to set up your defenders in a shape, rather than forever losing the ball at half back. And the other thing is they get so many players into defensive 50, they don't use the outnumber because it's wet. They can't run and carry with their hands. Look up, they're outnumbered forward of the ball. Let's spread Hawthorn out so that if we do kick it from the defensive end, we've got a contest in front of the ball.
I totally agree with you. You rob Peter to pay Paul there sometimes. They've got more around the contest to try and win it because they have to, because they can't win it without that. And then they kick it to an area where they're undermanned. That's their drama.
And then when we spoke about Hawthorn, and the really good teams do it, is that, the players at the contested ball, the stoppage, inside the first ring, I like to call it, St Kilda got 5, Hawthorn have got 3. And people go, well, you need a contest. But in that the confines of the phone box, it doesn't matter if you're outnumbered. It's the numbers, the smart numbers spread around the outside that get you run and carry.
Scott West and Mark McClure with their thoughts on the first half. Hawthorn by 58 points over St Kilda, 11-7-73 to the Saints 2-3-15 in Canberra. Port Adelaide has kicked the first 2 goals of the second term, so 7-4-46, leading the Giants 3-4-22. More from the MCG after the latest from the ABC newsroom.
ABC News with Jackie Munn. The Australian Medical Association says it's unlikely surgery availability will be affected by the recall of 2 batches of a commonly used drug. The Therapeutic Goods Administration has issued a recall for 2 batches of propofol, which may be contaminated with bacteria. 3 patients at 2 South Australian hospitals developed sepsis after being administered propofol from the recalled batches. The AMA Vice President, Professor Jeffrey Dobb, says there's plenty of other propofol supplies available.
But fortunately, there is more than one supplier. So depending on where people are living, they may find that the hospital they're attending is hardly affected at all by the contamination of propofol and the withdrawal of some of the supplies.
The Greens are accusing the Prime Minister of cowardice for not giving a full explanation for his decision to cancel a trip to Indonesia next week. The ABC understands Tony Abbott pulled out of the visit due to an asylum seeker operation off the West Australian coast, which could have caused embarrassment to the Indonesian leader. The Finance Minister has suggested budget preparations could be to blame for the decision, but a spokesman for Mr Abbott says he hopes to visit Indonesia soon to meet the President. Greens leader Christine Milne says the Abbott government's policies are continuing to damage relations with Jakarta.
So Tony Abbott needs to come out and explain to Australians exactly what he's doing. His cowardice is unacceptable. He's hiding behind a door at the moment. Well, come on out, Prime Minister. Let's tell the Australian people exactly what you're up to.
Pro-Russian forces are in control of Slavyansk in eastern Ukraine, surrounded by government forces who have blocked all roads in and out of the city. In the southwestern port city of Odessa, more than 30 people have been killed in a fire and others were shot dead in fighting between pro- and anti-Russian groups, opening a new front in the Ukrainian conflict. French journalist Pierre Crom is in Slavyansk, which is now under curfew.
The night has fallen here in Slavyansk. We are not going on the street because it's much too dangerous. There are snipers, there are people shooting, and that's too dangerous for us. So to go on the road.
The New South Wales opposition is calling on the Premier Mike Baird to take immediate action to clean up politics in the state. Police Minister Mike Gallagher resigned yesterday following allegations he was involved in a plot to conceal payments made from a development group controlled by Nathan Tickler to a Liberal Party slush fund. Mr Baird has promised to take every action necessary to restore the public's confidence. Deputy Opposition Leader Linda Burney says he should make public details of all Liberal Party donations.
Mike Baird, if he wants to keep any credibility, cannot continue just to say every day we're going to crack down on this and clean things up. We need to hear something concrete that Mike Baird's going to do to clean up his show. One way to do that would be totally accountable and transparent in what they're looking at within Liberal Party donor and their coffers.
Two country Victorian football teams are today competing in the inaugural Pride Cup, designed to combat homophobia. James Bennett reports.
Yarra Glen versus Yarra Junction has always been a fierce contest, but there's a different kind of pride at stake today. The teams from Melbourne's rural fringe are battling it out for the first Pride Cup, honouring Yarra Glen player Jason Ball, who came out about his homosexuality 2 years ago. The AFL is sponsoring today's match and last month agreed to new homophobia education and training measures. The AFL's Mark Evans says the league is ready to welcome gay players.
So it has to be an individual's choice. If they are ready, then so are we.
The AFL has so far, though, resisted calls for a Pride round. James Bennett, ABC News, Yarra Glen.
Now look at the weather for the capital cities tomorrow. Brisbane sunny and a top of 21 degrees. For Sydney, a little morning rain and 19. Canberra also morning rain and 11. For Melbourne, a few showers tomorrow, 15 degrees. Hobart, a few showers easing and a top of 14. Adelaide, partly cloudy, 19. Perth, late shower or two, 23. And for Darwin, early showers clearing and 33 degrees. This is ABC News.
There's a world of great sport content right at your fingertips with ABC Grandstand Online.
Visit abc.net.au/grandstand.
Get the latest sports results and stories and find out what's coming up with the broadcast schedule. Log on to abc.net.au/grandstand for sports coverage like no other.
Grandstand Sport.
It's on your radio, online, on digital radio and on your mobile. Saturday footy.
Grandstand AFL.
Kicks back to full forward. Roughhead sets himself. He got clipped high by Delaney, and it must be a free kick. Kicking for his second. He guides it straight through the middle.
Roughhead is there. Crunch of bodies. It comes underneath the Puopolo. He tried to dart through the pack. He's tackled high. Free kick right in front. I'd like to say couldn't miss this. Only 25 metres, but wet ball, slippery turf. And he doesn't miss.
Has a look up toward the 50. He balked the short option and goes long to the square instead. Roughhead's in the pack. Slips through the hands of Dempster. Schoenmaker's out of the pack. Kicks his third. And by day's end, he might double his career tally.
Burgoyne on the 50. Marks near the boundary line. Short pass to Bruce. Bruce thought of the centering ball. He might still think of it. But he's going back to have a look at the goals at the city end.
How many inside 50s this quarter, Drew, please?
15-0. 15-0. Bruce goes for goal from 45 and kicks it from wide out. His first for the day. And it sounds like they're booing, but they're roosting.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Local Radio, online and on ABC Grandstand Digital.
Half-time at the MCG, Hawthorn 11-7-73, leading St Kilda 2-3-15. The multiple goal kickers, Schoenmakers with 3 and Roughhead 2. In Canberra, Port Adelaide has put a space between itself and the Giants, 8-4-52 to GWS 3-4-22 in the middle stages of the second term. So Hawthorn doing it well, but Port Adelaide has the chance to, well, probably stay top of the ladder. Percentage will be interesting at the end of the day if the Hawks continue to restrict St Kilda in such a manner. So the rain has stopped for the time being, but there's threatening clouds everywhere. The lights are on, the sun peeking through, but the radar says there's plenty of moisture still to fall.
I want to have a look at some stats from the first half. Total possessions, 226 to 175. The marks are 58 to 30, just about a 2-to-1 ratio. The contested possessions level, 69 each. In slippery conditions, I suppose you're quite often in there for the contest. And the total kicks are 130 to 89. So the hand passes, not much difference, but the margin is in Hawthorn's kicking, which has been fantastic. The inside 50s, 31 to 15. Disposal efficiency, 74% for the Hawks, 64% for the Saints. Individuals, Burgoyne with 19, Hodge also 19, and Birchall 19. I'll go again. Burgoyne, Hodge and Birchall, all 19. 17 for Gibson, 14 for Suckling, 13 for Bruce, 12 for Hill, 11 for Smith, and 10s for Lake, Lewis and Roughhead. For the Saints, Montagna leads the way with 18 possessions. Jack Stephen, the best and fairest, with 17. And a gap to Lenny Hayes with 14. Jones 13. Ray 11 are the only players in double figures. Other end of the scale, Delaney 2 touches, Longer 2, Savage 4, Stanley 4. Hawthorn by a mile. In fact, 58.
Inside 50s is very interesting. 31 to 15. The quarter time was 12 all, but the score was a hell of a lot different. It was just the use of the ball inside. But in the second quarter, 19 to 3 for 11 scoring shots to 0. They're just dominating, and there's no other way to talk about it. It's just every player is on top of their man. Montagna's got some kicks, and I think Montagna's got 17 and Stevens 17, but they have no effect on the game. Actually, 0 effect on the game at this stage. They can't get it forward. And Wesley suggested you go one-on-one around the ground. Well, I think they should. I think they should test each other, put some players on Lewis, put someone on Gibson, and test themselves to see what they can get out of their second half. Because at this stage, it's going to be more of the same if they don't do that. And they can find out more about their players if they're going to be any good in the future. You'll find out. You can test it. It's not always done by the scoreboard. It's sometimes done on how you handle yourself in big company. And this is a good time to do it, I think. Westy?
Yeah, look, you're right. The one-on-one stuff I believe in at this stage of the game. I think language, the really good clubs and the clubs that, at the top of the ladder would use against Hawthorn would be isolate or separate and isolate their defenders. Because if you can do that, you are a chance to get them on the hit-up and one-on-one. But when you allow third man in, loose man behind the ball, that's how they want to play. And, yeah, it is a risk. But what it does is it becomes the work rate of midfielders getting back and helping the defenders to outnumber. You don't necessarily always need to start one back. It is about winning the stoppages, and they're only -4 St Kilda at stoppage at the moment. So it's your non-ball side players' ability to work back and help the defenders so that you can have one-on-one ahead of the footy. Interesting watching Hawthorn. I use the word discipline for them at quarter time because of the way they play the high percentage footy. But I watched an incident where the ball got transferred from outside the member side of the ground to the outer side, southern stand side of the ground. I watched 2 Hawthorn midfielders run 45 degrees as hard as they could to the outer side of the ground to create an option for the player who eventually marked it on the outer wing. What they did by going with intent is they dragged their player out with them, which then opened up a 45 inside. And that's the way they play. The unrewarded running creates an option for a player 45 inside. And clubs and supporters will go, why is there so much space there? But teams that just dawdle out there, what their player does, and that's what Hawthorn do, they just sag off. because they know there's no intent to the player to get there. They block that 45, which forces the player around the boundary. So their intent to want to lead and create space for each other, again, you use the word discipline. They are a very disciplined team. So it's going to be, a real challenge for St Kilda to make sure they're competitive in this second half. It's their want, and I use the word want. You've got to want to be able to do it. You've got to want to be able to compete. You've got to want to be able to run. And the most courageous players in footy are the ones that want to run and compete for the whole game.
It's not about talent, this game.
No.
It's never been about talent. All the talented players have come into this game. Some of them don't get through. It's about how hard you want to work when you get there, and how much you want to prove yourself, and how much you want to test yourself, and how much you want to continue to do so. And I mean, Nick's a really good leader, and Montagna and Hayes, they're very good in that area, but they are undermanned against a quality opposition like this. This is hard work for the Saints, but you can actually test yourself, as we talked about before, test yourself in a different way and measure yourself in a different way, and that's what Wesley's trying to talk about.
Right now, they would have reassessed what they want to get out of this game, because the first half they've got nothing out of it, in my opinion, but the second half they want to find something to get out of this game. That will maybe... I like the way Akers has gone about it.
He's good.
He hasn't had
good kid.
100 touches, but what he's done is he's competed. Go and play him on Hodge, or go and play him on... I don't know, go and really test him and really challenge him, like we said at the start of the game, because they've got to learn something. They've got to get something out of it.
They got a winnable game next week.
The Carlton?
Absolutely. Carlton and are pretty similar to St Kilda, wouldn't you think? Drew, you were here. You would have watched last night.
It's a Monday night,
yeah.
And they stitched them up Monday night last year.
Yeah, they have. They've done it a couple of times, and I've had 2 or 3 of those Monday night games, and I've been very close, both of them. And they have a winnable game, so they need to get themselves set for that. And sometimes the second half of this game is about doing that, trying things, getting things sorted out for the following week.
Now, we've had a couple of injuries. Sammy Mitchell's gone, and Geary's gone, and Rioli doesn't look too flash. He's just had 4 touches in the first half. Are you more likely to get injured on a wet, slippery day or not?
Well, you're going to get those contact injuries where you're sliding in. Well, we can't slide in anymore, so...
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I think the game's not as quick in the wet, so that's why I'm surprised seeing Mitchell do a hammy, and I didn't think he ran fast enough to do a hammy. Always got asked, why didn't you ever do a hammy? I said, well, I didn't run fast enough. So
you never did one?
Never did one. Well, you got to run quick. Go for high marks, all those sort of things. That wasn't my keeper. So, look, much of muchness, really. But the other one thing, and just something really off the radar, really interested in Alistair Clarkson attire these days. You very rarely see a senior coach in shorts and the polo and runners. They're always got the pants on and the polo tucked in and look very swish. But interesting, the whole coaching staff, and I know this has absolutely nothing to do with the game, but it's caught my eye over the season.
It's a Tommy Hafey look.
Well, the other thing that's caught my eye is in the commentary box. I said to Mark McClure, how cold has it got to be for you to wear longans?
Do you like to look at my legs, Drew?
No, I don't.
But should I wear long pants now? So that
what are we, round 7? Are you going to wait till round 14
on a day like today?
Well, the big question is, how's he going to go in the wet tomorrow?
Who's going to get me?
Yeah, isn't it tomorrow?
No, I'm going to be very good in the aftermatch, and that is it. Where I've never got it anywhere else but there.
So tomorrow's the Legends game at Princess Park, Carlton and Collingwood.
Yeah, it looks like going to be a beautiful day.
Weather footy. I'm tipping by mutual consent it could be called off early.
I don't think so. I think they'll let them run it out. I'm very happy to watch let them run it out, and then have a nice time with the fans and the public there and all the past players. So that's what it's all about, and it's all for a good cause.
Right,
Peter McCallum.
Here we get underway for the second half. A 58-point lead to the Hawks. They're 11-7 to 2-3. Up she goes. I'll give that one to Billy Longer, and it's roved down below by Hayes. And he gets the Saints inside 50. They went about 20 minutes in the second quarter before they got inside 50, and they're in within about 15 seconds this time. And the ball spills off hands, goes out of bounds, about 40 metres around from goal.
Again, their flexibility. Cyril starting at half back.
Can the Saints do anything with this? Longer against McAvoy. McAvoy wins. The Longer plucks it off the deck. Out to Ray, who has a fumble, regathers. Hand pass to Stephen. They're losing ground in possession. To Revolt. Run down. Lewis gets him in the back, does he? Play on, says the umpire. Longer has another go. Dive passes out to Lenny Hayes, who dodges and weaves, but his second dodge got him back into trouble. And the umpire said, that's okay, play on, play on. I did think he tried to beat the park and failed. Anyway, it's going to be thrown up.
So it's Hawthorn by 58 in Canberra. It's Port Adelaide by 32. Montagna gets it near the 50 from the stoppage. High ball drifts into the pocket. No mark taken. Birchall was able to rip it out of the grasp of Billings, who was claiming the mark. And then there's a free kick going Billings' way.
For a throw. You wouldn't see any of those in the game, would you?
Buried in the right forward pocket. Yeah, Birchall held by one arm and tossed it away. Jack Billings buried away in the pocket. There'll be a sliver of daylight between the posts as he takes his shot. That's a beautiful shot at goal. Never deviated. Threads it through the middle. And St Kilda scores for the first time since quarter time. They kick the first goal of the third term. The margin is 52 points.
That's what you get, one-on-one footy, press around the footy, win the first centre bounce, get inside 50. They had 3 inside 50 for the second quarter. They've had 1 in the first minute and scored. It's, the ability to be able to get field position, hold inside forward 50, and these opportunities, the throwing the ball decision went their way, happen when you put pressure on the footy and get the ball in dangerous areas. And, I'm glad it's good to see that they're one-on-one across the ground.
Billings, 7 possessions. Laid a couple of tackles, kicked a goal. Well done. Bounce in the middle. McAvoy again against his old side. Rioli in the middle, 4 goes to ground. Lewis gets a hand pass back. Through McAvoy it goes to Hodge. High inside 50. And the mark in defence taken by Dempster for the Saints. Gets some support from Stephen, who does cover the ground, Jack Stephen. It's a beauty. Short pass, and Billings, the goal scorer, marks at half-back flank. Down the line to centre wing to Revolt. Hodge in front of him. Crumbs come to Hodge. Now Farron Ray. Little hand pass back to Stephen. He's at half-back flank. He's up on the wing. He kicks to half-forward. Comes to the front. Clint Jones. Saints have come out with a bit of zest about him in this quarter. And Jones goes to ground. The umpire will throw it up.
Up it goes. McAvoy and Longer. You give that to Longer, defensive side of the pack. After it there is News. He got muscled backwards. Off the ground goes Hill for the Hawks to cross halfway. Goot is there to repel. He gives it to Montagna, who's worked over the boundary by Bruce.
We spoke about St Kilda going one-on-one, and they have for this first bit of the quarter, but Billy Longer has to run with McAvoy. He can't allow him to just fold in behind the foot. He needs to go step for step with him.
At the throw in, McAvoy down to the front. Stephen was lurking, waiting for it. Bruce wrapped him up. I think Stephen's going to get knocked off holding the ball. So Bruce rises with the free kick. He brings it inboard. Hallahan marks. Inside the 50. Good kick out in front of Schoenmakers. He never had to break stride to mark.
He looks a forward, doesn't he, Ryan Schoenmakers?
Oh, you lead up there, Drew, and you would get hit too, I reckon. As long as you've got a yard in front, they get you. They're just brilliant.
He's quite striking how big he is, given he started his career as a scrawny fella trying to find his way at fullback. He's 195 centimetres and 94 kilos. And Ryan Schoenmakers is kicking for his 4th. Gee, hit that pure. That's a beautiful kick. And Schoenmakers continues to rack them up. Back to 58 points. It's 12-7 to 3-3.
Now the conditions have cleared up a little bit. There's some clean ball, and there's a beautiful pass by Hallen, who to straight into Schoenmakers on the chest, and he didn't let them down. They continue on their way, their merry way. The Saints have gone one-on-one, and I think that's a really good thing for them. They're dragging their player to where they want to go. Sometimes you can take your defender somewhere where they don't want to be. It's a beautiful kick, set up well, and they just continue on their way.
The Hawks have used more interchanges than the Saints, 62 to 55. Rioli's gone to the bench, and if he's not quite right, he just might stay there for a fair while. Bounce in the middle. Longer up early. It's in the bullseye. Savage lays a tackle, but it comes out to Bruce. And pass out. Gee, they're good. Puopolo goes back. And the kick by Suckling up towards half-forward. Hill to the boundary line, right at the interchange gate. And we get a throw in. Nerily.
Just on Cyril Rioli, he definitely isn't 100%. Every time he comes to the bench, one of the physio or doctors do go and see him. So he'll play out the game, but there's something not quite right.
And he's back on now as we speak. McAvoy wins the hit out. And here's Rioli into the play. Just minding his own business out the back. And then he accelerates and bounces and passes to Roughhead. Glorious, Cyril. Thanks for coming off the bench. Gee, Roughhead took a hell of a hit just after taking the mark. A bloke with a crook leg, whatever it is, groin, knee, calf, not entitled to accelerate like that on wet turf.
No, it's all relative, it turns out.
Gee, that's good. Had just 5 touches for the game, Cyril. Now Ruffy. He's kicked 2, lining up for third from 40 metres. That's another one. Now the suburb of Hawthorn isn't far away. You're not far enough away. Come down and watch the second half if Cyril's going to turn it on like that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to play like that when I was injured. Again, the great balance between plays inside with the coalface, where the ball was, and the balance on the outside. You know, Cyril did just come off the bench, so St Kilda just weren't smart enough to roll up on him. The forwards needed to roll up on him, so he wasn't spare off the back of that stoppage. But you can't allow, and Simpkin had great courage to try and intercept the mark, but the kick was just too low and flat. It didn't have any loop in it for him to be able to make up the difference.
Hawks by 64 at halftime in Canberra. It's Port Adelaide by 32 over the Giants. Bruce in the middle for the Hawks. Delayed the hand pass beautifully to release Hallahan. He kicks inside the 50, but Simpkin saw it coming. He takes the intercepting mark for the Saints. Hand pass to Gwilt. Kicks around the southern wing. Savage is his target. Drops the chest mark, and now he's in the grasp of Rioli. That's where you don't want to be. Ray gets in there to help him out, but hasn't won the footy yet. Off the ground once and twice went Hartung. He's lost the footy. Hayes took it for a moment, worked it out to the side for Ray. Bumbled it up beyond halfway, but that's where it ends. Duray for the Hawks, gives it to Hodge. Short little ball back for Hartung. He missed it and Rioli hand passed it away. So untidy from the Hawks there, but they should get it back because they've got all the numbers at half-back and very unlikely by Lake to trap it with his foot.
I reckon he's done a hamstring.
Oh,
yeah. I think he's done a hamstring.
He's not moving too well. This slippery turf could be playing havoc. Hill has it in the middle of the ground. Fires up the hand pass. Suckling goes for a bounce. So maybe the turf isn't as slippery as it might be. Suckling kicks it about 15 metres to Bruce. Tries a short pass and it's smothered off the boot. It's on the 50. That was a bit careless by Luke Bruce. The umpire comes in to throw it up.
You don't flirt with your form. First give, get it in, hit the lead, give it to the player in the best position.
I think Brian Lake is going to limp off, and he's got a fair limp to go. He's got about 80 metres to get to the interchange. Kick for touch by Stephen. Deliberate? No. Umpire says to his field colleague, throw it in.
So do you reckon Lake did his hamstring being a smart aleck trapping it with his foot, or he done the hamstring just as he was approaching the ball?
My tip, smart aleck.
It looked like that. And given that he's had such an interrupted start to the season, that's no good for him at all. Out of the pack, Weller off half-back for the Saints, up to Savage, works the hand pass over the top for Saunders. It's a lot to get through here. Curran and Montagna and Weller all do. Weller kicks up to half-forward. Jones was the man in the van. Schoenmakers is back doing the work there now. He's made the spoil. So his fun forward might have ended on the Lake hamstring. Hand pass in the Schoenmakers' direction. Fights for it at ground level. Out the back, he needs support, and he's got it from Gunston, who gives some ground to Gibson and Birchall and Smith, who looks out across the face of goal and will deliver in the Burgoyne direction.
Had a wonderful game, Sean Burgoyne. What a beautiful kick to centre wing. Hale takes the mark. Here's Cyril to receive the hand pass. Off the left boot. What a pass it is to Roughhead again. He marks on the 50. Just get ahead of Cyril, you'll get a touch. Roughhead goes for the short pass. In it goes to Hodge, who marks 40 out. Cutting up the Saints' defence. Disposals 263 to 202, and the marks are 65 to 34. Nerily?
Brian Lake has gone into the rooms with that right injury, so he's not looking in a good way. He actually tried to contest as he was running off when you said he had a long limp to go, but he eventually got to the boundary and not a happy man.
Well, if he's gone for the day, Cyril might have to play out the rest of the game. He's too injured in his last two efforts. Hodge will be kicking from about 47. Left foot drop punt is left all the way through for a minor score. The Hawks 13-8. The Saints 3-3. The margin 65.
They've got the Sydney Swans next Friday night, Hawthorn, so they're not at the bye yet. So the injuries are costly in the short term. Mitchell and Lake both gone. Montagna plays on out of fullback. And he's got Webster leading up for him. Roughhead arrived in the nick of time to reach in and edge it away out of play. Merrily.
And just on that, we believe that Sam Mitch was actually a right calf muscle and not a hamstring, and that would rule him out for quite a bit longer, and it's the same calf that he had concerns with in round one, I believe it was.
So this is clearly going to be a win, but it is going to come with a toll. Stanley worked it through the pack for Hayes, who kicks around the wing, but Duray going back with the flight takes the intercepting mark for Hawthorn. Forward of the play now for Suckling. Suckling will drill this up inside the 50. See if they can get a jumper at it. Wilt went back bravely into the pack, but Brewster's still got the footy. Hand pass to Roughhead. He's on the left boot. He curls it in perfectly. And that's 4 for Jared Roughhead. And the Hawks out beyond 70 points. 14-8-92 to St Kilda 3-3-21.
Well, they're two tools up forward in Roughhead and Schollamakers have kicked 8 goals between them. They've been outstanding in that area. But again, there was another bang forward by Suckling into a dangerous area. The ball falls, quick hands out, and there he is on the end of it. They just understand each other. It's the same drill after the same drill, and you understand why. It's practicing to be perfect all the time. They continue to do the same things over and over. It's repetitive. It sounds repetitive when we talk about it, but it absolutely, they are killing the opposition with their repetition of really good skills.
Back in the middle, lands on McAvoy's head, and he virtually taps it to Stanley, his opponent. They wrestle for the ball inside the circles. The ball is gouged out somehow by Rioli. Off to Puopolo. He kicks long to full forward. No mark. Comes to the front to Bruce. 15 out. Hawks gives the hand pass away to Hodge. His hand pass is knocked down. It's Bilster Smith of the Hawks. Off to Roughhead. It was 10 metres out and he centred the ball. And it did well because Brewster's marked right in front. Now they are having a real race for the leading goal kicker. Bruce, Gunston and Roughhead. Today, Ruffy's got 4 for a total of 17. Gunston 1 for a total of 16. And Bruce 1 for a total of 18. And Bruce for his second to take the clear lead in the club goal kickers. Home it goes. So Ruffy's not interested in personal milestones, playing the team game. Hawthorn 15-8 to 3-3.
Well, he just typifies the way they want to play, Roughhead. He leads the way in the discipline acts, assists as well, yeah. Getting players in better positions, and he knows his time comes for him to have a shot on goal, as we saw in the previous goal. Left foot out, perfect position. But you talk about habits, and you spoke earlier, Sellers, about the way they train. They train like this. That's why they're so good. You create habits at training, which come into games. You can't turn the switch in anything, let alone in sport. You've got to be able to train it, and they train as hard as they play, and they do the basic things really well at training, and that shows in games.
Scott West on Grandstand AFL. The Hawks by 77. Half-time encounter, it's Port Adelaide by 32. They wrestle for it in the middle. Nothing comes. So Port 10-6-66, leading the Giants 5-4-34. So it was 5-2 in that second term, Port Adelade's way. It's still a mess for it. Percentage coming in today, they're the top two teams, they're both going to win. Port on top 157.98, Hawthorn 155.29. So with the way the Hawks have held St Kilda to such a low score, it's entirely possible, even in victory, Port Adelaide will lose top spot at the hands of Hawthorn. Puopolo lays a good tackle in the middle of the ground and he wins holding the ball and will finally get a clearance. He flares it out to the members' side, out in front of Gibson. Paddles it to his own advantage on the stretch. Settles over the kick and delivers it long in the Hale direction. It won't reach him. It's all on the crumb. Webster's worked off it by Hill, who flings the boot but misses it. Hand pass by Akers to Dempster to Weller. They're right on the last line and hemmed in. Webster's hand pass is tipped through for a behind by Hallahan. There was no getting through.
Well, a one-on-one stop, because now Gibson's the loose man and Simpkins the other one at the other end. So they've just forgot about that one, gave up, which is not a good sign.
That was unbelievable forward pressure by the Hawks. Wilt From 33 miles, the number 33. Kicks it long, gets it outside the 50, close to the boundary line. Well, it was a good option. Stanley marks. Fine at the moment. Lights are still on, but no rain. Kicked by Stanley. Absolute horror. Is it smothered off the boot? Yep. Comes to Stephen. Gets the hand pass away to Akers. Back to Stephen. Stephen for the third time. Gets it from Simpkin. Stephen goes across the ground. And the mark taken in defence by Dempster. Gets it outside the 50 to Delaney, who's just turned up. Just caught the 3:15 train. Kicks up towards centre wing. Not good enough. It came up short of Ray, and working in front was Smith. And he gets it over the boundary line. Out.
Merrily Meadows.
Just an update. Brian Lake is still in the rooms. It's a right calf injury. Now, he too had troubles with his calf. We know that he was out suspended for the first 4 weeks, but he was also battling a calf injury as well. So they're down to 2 on the bench at the moment, Hawthorn.
Montagna up beyond halfway, but Gibson is well into the game. And he takes the intercepting mark. Disposal number 20 coming up. He goes sideways to Birchall, off to Schoenmakers. Right into the middle for Duray, who slips the hand pass for Birchall. Creeping forward, hails his target. Simpson caught underneath it. It clears them. Gunston runs onto it at the back. And he kicks his second. Hawthorn by 84 points halfway through the third term.
Another set up by the great defence again. Gibson to Birchall. Birchall waits, saw 2 or 3 leads that weren't good enough. He bangs it long to the top of the square again. It's just no fluke. Everyone goes, oh, that's a fluke. Oh, no, it ain't. It is not a fluke. It is a plan, and they just continue to go with it. Terrific play by down back, Gibson and Birchall.
They're playing handicap football, the Hawks. Here's Schoenmakers in his first game of the year. He's kicked 4 and now playing in the last line of defence. Gone back on Reebok.
Well, you've got to do what you've got to do, Drew. And if one of their tools goes down, as in Brian Lake, someone's got to cover.
It's handy to have someone like that on the side, isn't it? McAvoy wins the hit out. Shark by Stephen of the Saints. Here comes Rioli. He gets it back. Goes through it 100 miles an hour. Gives it to Smith. Gets it back. Shoots from 40. Goal of the day, Cyril Rioli.
That was unbelievable. Just the speed, the precision, there's not much you can say about it because it was unbelievable. Their ability to be able to win, his ability to be able to win the contest, keep his feet, which is a really important thing in footy, especially in these slippery conditions. The support he had off the wing, to give and go, just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
He certainly can't be injured, can he?
No, I think we can definitively rule that out now. 17-9 to 3-3. This is going to be 100 points before three-quarter time. In the middle, Lewis had it knocked from his grasp. Rioli threatened again, couldn't quite get his hands to it. Stephen did. Off to Jones. The Saints forward for a moment at least. Savage went with the one hand. Duray flung a boot at it. He missed it completely. Saunders is grappling at ground level with Hallahan. Hallahan wins out. He used Lewis, and they shoot it off around through Hill. Out the back to Hodge, forward of the play to Suckling, trying to barge his way through. He got caught, and he must get knocked off holding the ball.
Just couldn't slide out left foot side.
Yep.
and just got cornered beautifully.
The curse of the left footer. So Curran with the free kick. He brings it out to Billings at right half back. Saints will kick 1 goal in this third term after going scoreless in the second. Billings across the face of goal for Simpkin. Out the far side, Gwilt's the target. He was made to earn that. McAvoy came in hard and hit him. The umpire on the scene to pay the free kick. McAvoy is limping, and Gwilt's, you might say he's all right, but he's collapsed back to the turf as he tried to rise, and at the very least he's going to have to come off under the blood rule. So we'll have 4 trainers around him, Gwilt. And quite dazed as he comes up.
He's got a knee somewhere.
And he'll be required to leave the field.
A nasty hit.
Yeah. Would it cause any concern at the match review?
Absolutely not. It's totally, both had eyes on the ball, and I didn't see any untowards there. But that doesn't matter, Jerry. As you well know, it took blood out.
Yes. It wasn't a bump, so that much. It was just a collision. So Gwilt leaving the field, and Simpkin takes the free kick as a result. Long down the southern wing. Revolt hasn't been near it for a long time, and he can't take the mark here. It's punched away out of play. Narrowly.
Gwilt's gone straight down into the rooms looking very groggy indeed, and just an update on Brian Lake. He's on the bench and got the jacket on, so his day is done with that right calf.
Boundary throw in, southern stand side. Comes to Nunes of the Saints. Pinched by Hodge. He works it in somehow. Running onto it is Akers, and he goes for goal and kicks it. Hard-tongue it was. Hard-tongue for the Hawks. On debut, gets the goal, and the Hawks go to 18-9 to 3-3.
Well, how do you think he's enjoying his day, his debut game? You know, out here in a game of where they're going to be up by nearly 100 points at three-quarter time. Look, this kid's an elite runner. He's got the OAS, or he's got the combine record for the beat test at I think 16.6 or something like that, just off the top of the head. But you know, his ability to be able to run, stay in the contest, again, their ability to be able to have numbers around the ball, share the ball in congestion, to get out of congestion, just is outstanding, and they're just a pleasure to watch at the moment.
Gee, they came from everywhere. Originally named as a sub, got on early after the injury to Mitchell, and his first goal in footy.
Out of the middle, Lewis worked it around with Duray, got it back off to Suckling, out to the wing in front of Smith. This favours him as he runs onto it at full steam, kicks up toward half forward. He didn't control it well. He was looking for Hale, but it got away and bounced out of play. It is a rare day at the footy where it would be triple figures by three-quarter time. But there seems little the Saints can do to combat the onslaught. It's 7-1 in this term. And there's a fair bit of time left in it too. Montagna takes it from the stoppage, kicked up towards halfway. Birchall traps it on the bounce. He feeds it out the back to Litherland. Works it around with Gibson. Sideways now for Suckling. They gave away plenty of ground, but it will be able to set them up.
Well, I can remember a day when Brisbane led Sydney, when Sydney were coached by Ron Barassi, by 100 at halftime. Hill, centre wing, short pass, Gunston takes the mark. He came at him so fast and finished up alongside Hill. Centres the ball into Lewis. What a day. Game 200, an engagement party tonight. Kicks it further across the ground to Birchall. Is stationary with nobody near him. Birchall does kick the distance. Rough head in front, worked under the ball. At the back, Rioli. Don't tell me he could do it again. And passes back.
Yes.
Receives it again. Rioli off the left this time. Sides it home for another goal. He was gone for all money. He's kicked 2 this quarter. The Hawks 19-9 with the Saints 3-3, and they lead by 102.
They kicked 6 in the first, 5 in the second. Now they've kicked 8, is it? 8 this quarter? That's a massive result. They've got no opposition whatsoever. They're witches' hats at this stage. It is, they're playing against nobody. And Cyril has been absolutely scintillating in the way he moves with the ball, kicks goals, touches. As soon as he touches it, the power and speed he tears away from them is just exhilarating. I love it. And so does everyone else around the place too.
So that's tipped it beyond the triple figure mark. And there's still 6 minutes left in the third term.
Wow.
So this is going to be increasingly gruesome. Montagna out of the middle with a hand pass over the top to Stephen. Gets it to the right boot and finds Jones. 60 out from goal. Revolt wanted it short. Jones kicked it and smothered by Hodge. Was brilliant stuff. There's nothing the Hawks can't do. McAvoy to Burgoyne to Hill running the wing. He kicks for Gunston at half forward. Up over the top of Simpkin. Didn't mark. Does get the footy. Hand pass to Bruce. Trying to get around Nunes. He can't. It spills away and out of play. 60 from the Hawthorn goal.
102 points the lead. They led by 23 at quarter time and 58 at half time. Here's the throw in. Has McAvoy done the right thing going from St Kilda to Hawthorn? Comes down the Hawks' way. Burgoyne from a standing start with a kick to full forward, and Delaney marks in the last line for the Saints. Gets the hand pass away. And cleared by Dempster outside the 50. And the mark taken by Schneider, who's having just his 6th possession of the day. Over half back with his kick. Stanley in front. Good mark in front of Schoenmakers. Gets a call from inside. and honours the call. Billings takes the mark for the Saints. Close to half-back. Puts boot into leather in the direction of Revolt, who's been out of it today, Rui. Ball comes to the front. Simpkin. Back in defence as he's been all day. Gibson dives in, marks for the Hawks. Off to Burgoyne. Beautiful foot pass. Left or right is a beauty. And Gunston marks behind the wing. He puts it over the top. Here's Bruce. Gets a kind bounce. Bobbles the ball on the end of his fingertips. Can't quite control it. And shepherds it all the way to the line. The throw-in will do it.
Narrowly.
Third time today that Hawthorn skipper Luke Hodges getting some work done on his right hamstring. Of course, that's not going to help with the fact that they're down to 2 on the bench. So nobody's getting much of a break at the moment.
Hawks by 102 points. McAvoy the tap down to Montagna. Once that would have been okay, but not now. Off to Ray. Kicks the Saints up beyond the middle. Jones gives it to Akers. On the boundary. He kicks for half forward. Schoenmakers led Stanley to it. He dropped the mark. Did the defender now. And it's smothered away and out of play. So 60 from the St Kilda goal. They kicked the first goal of this term and then have watched a whole lot go by. 14-3 inside 50s, 8-2 in succession for the Hawks. Lewis from the stoppage. Over to Hallahan and now to Burgoyne, who goes for a burning run around the wing. 2 bounces. Wobbles the kick up to half forward. It gets through Dempster. Hale propelled himself at it. Knocked it out for Roughhead. On to Puopolo. Bounces it at the goal front. Gunston's caught behind. He was working against Simpkin. Simpkin did okay. Got it away to Dempster. Out to the defensive 50 where Weller was happy to see it over the boundary.
Hawthorn going to the punt road end in this third quarter. The rain has stopped. There's actually a hint of blue sky about. The lights are on. Here's the throw in on the 50. Hale at the back. Taps it to the back. Got it sharked there by Akers of the Saints. He works it off to Billings. A couple of youngsters. Billings kick off the left for Clint Jones. Clears him. At the back is Gibson, who's just mopped up everything. Just come out today and done some house cleaning. Suckling, beautiful off the left, into the middle. Schoenmakers off the left to Isaac Smith. He balks a hand pass. He just sells the dummy. Taken by Akers. And the kick inside the 50. Clears them as they attempt the mark. At the back, Gunston. He gets the hand pass to Poppy. And Puopolo runs in and kicks the goal. His second. The Saints were caught like witches' hats.
Well, just what can you say? There's not much you can say because it's just been an absolute belting. And Hawthorn have just... We knew there was a gulf between the teams before the game, but it's nearly become uncompetitive now. And that'll be the most disappointing thing in the St Kilda box is that everything that they aim to stop Hawthorn doing within this game, they've just let them do it well. And that's uncontested marks, run off half-back. Look, St Kilda haven't helped themselves by allowing a free, but, you know, their answer to that is put one in the forward, one in their defensive 50 to try and help spare, but they're too good, Hawthorn. They just catch up with their feet, and they've just shown that all day.
Scott West on Grandstand AFL. The margin is 108 points. A forlorn kick out of the middle by Ray for the Saints up toward half forward. But there are numbers at it again for the Hawks. Hartung uses Burgoyne and Gibson and Roughhead is down there at half back. He kicks it for Hodge, who takes the mark beyond the middle now for McAvoy. It'll bounce up perfectly into his arms. Everything running Hawthorn's way. Hand pass to Birchall. Birchall on the left boot inside the 50. Puopolo's on his own again. He won't go at goal. He'll lay it off for Hale. And he takes it 25 out from the targets.
Actually, the Hawks are out on their feet. They've run so hard in some areas. Have a look at them. They're on their haunches. They're all actually very weary. One more quarter to go. How long since we've seen a side kick 21 goals in 3 quarters?
So, I mean, you've got the record books out. They're just starting to push up to being in the top 5 of various things. And there's no end to it in sight. For 10 goals in the quarter, David Hale delivers the goods. And what a masterclass this is from Hawthorn. 21-9, 135 to St Kilda 3-3-21. 30 and a half minutes gone.
Becoming sad, really. I mean, to watch the Saints. They're in bad shape. Their heads are down. They're beaten. They want this to end in a hurry. Unfortunately, you got 30 minutes more of this stuff. And the Hawks, how long can they keep going at this pace? They look weary. They move the ball. There's so much space. They've run themselves out. They've run the opposition off their legs. They've out-contested them. They've beaten them with skill. They've beaten them with nous. They've beaten them with everything. And their defence is just impassable.
Gee, it's a shame for the Saints, really. They won their first 2 games of the season. An honourable loss to West Coast and a terrific win against Essendon. It's all gone for nothing now. Saints out of the middle and a good mark taken out in front of goal. A kick out of the middle, Montagna, and Billings' mark in front, 25 metres out.
A long time since we've seen this.
Gee, that's encouraging because Gibson has been spoiling everything and he couldn't get his fist to that. So a really good mark taken here by Jack Billings in front. He shoots for his second and he's missed it. Well, he's kicked their only goal for this quarter. That was very early on. He had a chance to be a one-man team there, but a shame he missed that. You've got to be kicking those.
So inside the final minute of the third term, the kick-in is for Suckling. Suckling will bring it for Lewis inside the centre square. Hand pass in front of Hill. He's got to push away from Jones. Does so. Hand passes it back to Lewis, who stayed with him the whole way. Kick to half forward. That's where it ends. Stanley up over the top of the smaller Duray.
Interesting, after that missed kick, there's a bit of a to-do between Birchall and Lewis. Even being over 100 points up, there's an expectation that not to overuse the footy, not to be too fancy, give the best option, and Birchall was the best option because he was in space outside on his left foot and he had grass in front of him and he wasn't happy.
Duray for Weller. He hit the $1 million kick and he found Ray. Kicks up to half forward. Schneider's pushing Gibson in the back and gets knocked off for it, but that's three-quarter time. As soon as time on restarts. And Hawthorn with a 10-goal third term. Leads by 113 points at the final change. 21-9, 135 to St Kilda, 3-4-22. As far as records go, Drew, you mentioned the match between the Brisbane Bears and the Sydney Swans. 161 points at three-quarter time was the record.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah, and there was 2, 4, 6, 8. The 8th highest three-quarter time lead was 122. So they haven't quite forced their way up the record books, but they're not too far from it.
I remember the camera came onto the ground and the great man Ron Barassi was coaching the Swans and he told the camera crew to bugger off, or words to that effect.
Oh, that would have helped the team.
Hawthorn by 113. Their goal kickers, 4 for Roughhead and for Schoenmakers. 2 each for Gunston, Hale, Brust, Puopolo and Rioli, with singles to Burgoyne, Hill and Hartung. While for St Kilda, it's 1 each to Montagna, Billings and Stanley. Sam Mitchell out of the game in the first quarter with a calf injury, and the same fate befalling Brian Lake in that term. In Canberra, in the early stages of the third term, it is Port Adelaide by 32 points, 10-7-67 for the Giants, 5-5-35. This is Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio, Radio Australia and Grandstand Digital.
Isn't it rich? Are we a pair?
This Girl CD is the debut solo album from Rachel Beck, one of Australia's best-loved and most prolific stage performers. Draws on hits from much-loved musicals and cult songs. This Girl CD, available now from ABC shops, centres, shop online and good music shops.
Saturday Footy.
Grandstand AFL.
Hill went back bravely into the pack, but Brewster still got the footy. Hand pass to Roughhead. He's on the left boot. He curls it in perfectly. And that's 4 for Jared Roughhead. Right into the middle for Duray, who slips the hand pass for Birchall. Creeping forward, hails his target. Simpson caught underneath it. It clears them. Gunston runs onto it at the back. And he kicks his second.
Even of the Saints. Here comes Rioli. He gets it back. Goes through it 100 miles an hour. Gives it to Smith. Gets it back. Shoot from 40. Goal of the day, Cyril Rioli. Roughhead in front. Worked under the ball. At the back, Rioli. Don't tell me he could do it again. And passes back.
Yes.
Receives it again. Rioli off the left this time. Sides it home for another goal. kick inside the 50. Clears them as they attempt the mark. At the back, Gunston. He gets the hand pass to Poppy. And Puopolo runs in and kicks the goal.
For 10 goals in the quarter, David Hale delivers the goods. What a masterclass this is from Hawthorn.
Grandstand AFL.
On ABC Local Radio, online and on ABC Grandstand Digital.
10-2 to 1-1 in that third term. Hawthorn by 113 points at the final change. Our next game today is at the Adelaide Oval. It's the Crows and the Demons, and Matt Clinch is in place. Clinchy.
Jared, good afternoon. We've had some wet and windy conditions in Adelaide over the last couple of days, but at the moment the sun's poking through, so we're hopeful we might get through the game without any wet weather, although Melbourne, who's averaged just 54 points a game, may hope that might help their cause a little bit this afternoon. Adelaide, a good win over the Western Bulldogs last week, even though they had to fight their way back from a late start or slow start, kicking 7 unanswered goals midway through the match, and James Podsiadly and Josh Jenkins both kicking 3 goals. There's no late change for either side, so the emergency is not required. And the sub, Mitch Grigg for the Crows and Christian Salem for the Demons. So looking forward to this afternoon. Adelaide trying to make it 4 wins on the trot, an higher position inside the top 8. And Melbourne fighting for a bit of credibility and respect. That's what's coming up later this afternoon. Myself and Anthony Tucker, Rod Jamieson and Stephen Williams. Jared.
Good on you, Clinchy. We'll be with you shortly. Scott West and Mark McClure.
Well, just been a power-packed performance by Hawthorn. 10 goal kickers. The discipline they show across the ground to be able to work for each other, the support around the football, wanting to put players in better positions. And we spoke about, we're very repetitive in what we're saying, but they just do it for the whole time, and that's why they're such a good team. The rough Ed, he just leads the discipline party because he's the one that wants to put a player in a better position. He blocks for players. As I said during the call, he knows when his time's coming for his opportunity to kick a goal. So what comes around goes around. I think the McAvoy incident underpins how they want to play and the desperation in how they want to go about it. He had every reason not to throw his body in because they're 90-odd points up, or they're probably 100 points up at that particular stage. But that's the way they want to. That's why they want to play for the whole 120 minutes. I'm a little critical of St Kilda. And I don't mean to be smart, but their ball movement is so stagnant. They get held up at half-back and they have 3 players stationary behind the ball, the person with the ball. The difference with Hawthorn is when they get held up at half-back, their defenders get up the ground. They get up the ground and they create space for someone to lead back on the footy. All that's happening is Hawthorn compress the middle of the ground. They compress the dangerous area. They sag off players who are 60 metres off. They compress so they can't get an easy. The St Kilda players behind the ball carrier, they need to get up the ground and create space for someone to lead back so they're actually moving the ball forward. That's how they're going to be able to create ball movement going forward, not sideways.
Scott West with his thoughts at 3/4 time. Nerily Meadows.
No sign of Sam Gwilt, boys. So at the moment, both clubs down to 2 players on the bench. Injuries to Lake, Mitchell for the Hawks, and Geary with that elbow. And Gwilt, we believe, is concussion after that heavy knock. So it's going to be a tough one, this one, with 2 down on the bench.
Hawthorn by 113 with rain falling as we begin the final term on Grandstand AFL, and Burgoyne soccers it out of the middle. Gunston couldn't take the mark at centre half forward. Hartung toes it to his own advantage, gathers but he can't drop Ray, who brings him to ground. Lays a good tackle. Webster knocked it out for Hayes, who had a fumble. And the Hawks are able to pick it up through Hallahan, who's pushed out of play. It'll be thrown in under the southern stands. Point back into play. Longer to the front. McAvoy knocks it goal side, and Burgoyne is there again to gather. He's pumped this up to full forward to give Roughead every chance. Delaney gets a spoil in there, pushes it out toward the boundary. Roughead knocks Delaney off the footy, but it won't stay in the field of play. Just eluded him over out the line.
He's nearly got 3 votes already, Burgoyne. The last quarter hasn't been played, I reckon. He's just been outstanding this game.
28 possessions, 103 Dream Team points already with a quarter to play. The boundary throw-in is knocked straight back to the boundary line and flops and bobbles and just gets over the line for another throw-in. Light rain falling again at the MCG. All the lights on. For all the world, it looks like a night game. In it comes. Hale makes a good contest. It comes to Hill. Outside of his boot. Deep inside the forward 50. Gathered by Burgoyne. Snaps off the left. Across the body. Brilliant by Sean Burgoyne. A goal. Parcel up 3 votes. Had the hint from Scotty West.
Don't go off too early.
Oh, well, someone's going to have to do something extraordinary in the last 23 minutes or 17 minutes, to get the vote. Oh, look, he's just... Look, they just adapt so well. Just get the ball in. They don't over finesse. They do at times because they can off half back. But forward to centre, they are so disciplined. Get the ball to the right spot. Players get into the right spots to create a chance to kick goals. And we've seen it all day. And they've adapted to these conditions. When it's become dry, they use the ball by foot through the back half. When it's wet, they just get it to the top of the square.
So they've kicked 11 in a row in the match. Longer won the tap, but it's a real battle for the ball. Hayes picks it up off the turf. He ran into McAvoy, hand passed it forward, but Rioli swooped on it, gave it to Bruce Dan, got it back, and Rioli just gliding through, kicks up the full forward. Roughhead comes out, couldn't complete the mark. Simpkins onto it in defence. Gunston was onto him, forces the turnover. Smith hand passes it back near Gunston. He paddles it for Hartung, who gives it to Suckling, and now to Smith right against the boundary. Kick to the top of the square. Roughhead one way, knocked away from him by Simpkin. Got to be one at ground level. Dempster threw it onto the boot, kicked it sideways, and watches it bounce out of play.
Gee, they're playing with sensational discipline, even though the margin's 119 points, and they look as though they're having fun while doing it. A throw in down towards the forward pocket for the Hawks at the city end of the MCG. Over the top, Stanley's knocked it straight to Gunston. Hand pass to Bruce. He's only 8 metres out, and Bruce kicks a goal. That's his 3rd for the game. This could be anything. 23-9 to 3 goals 4.
Unbelievable. This is demolishing a footy club completely. And now 20 goals in front, and nearly 21 goals in front. And they've got something like another 25 minutes to go in this quarter. They could finish with 30 goals here quite comfortably, and we haven't seen 30 goals kicked in an AFL game. I wouldn't have thought for the 70s.
I would have thought that's
something like that. Maybe against the Brisbane Bears, and some years ago. They are a machine. They are no doubt the favourites for the flag, and they are showing why.
We did those 2 Geelong games back-to-back a couple of years back where they kicked 30-something against Melbourne and then backed it up with another 30 against Gold Coast. But it's such a rare feat in footy in this era.
This era, absolutely.
Hayes out of the middle, bounces it up towards the 50. Akers with a hand pass which didn't amount to anything. Hodges onto it, gives it to Burgoyne. Careful with the kick for Hartung, who tucks it under the arm and goes. He has a bounce running right through the middle of the G. He spreads it out to Puopolo, unguarded again, and he doesn't waste it. He puts it onto the chest of Gunston, 40 from home.
I love the way that kid just ran with the ball, put his head down. No one's going to catch me, and off he went, young Hartung. Saw a photograph of his mum in the grandstand before, and she was overly excited about her boy, how he's going in the first game in league football. Kick a goal, grab the ball and play on a great side. That's something special.
It's always in good hands with Jack Gunston. From 50 out, the drop punt was online from the outset. That's his 3rd goal, and the margin reaches 131 points. 5 minutes into the final term. They've kicked 13 in a row in the match. Narrowly.
Just an update, Gwilt is back on the bench, but he went straight to the back of the dugout. So his day is done. That means both clubs officially down to 2 on the bench. They're turning away players, trying to come off for a break left, right and centre. And you were talking about the rain forecast and what was coming on the radar earlier. I think those purple, red, pink and polka dotted bits have come in now. The rain is sideways.
I'll wait till the hail starts.
No lightning like in Sydney, thanks.
It's warm in here.
What an exhibition the Hawks are putting on here. Hale works it down. Lewis gets his hands free. Roughhead on the ball. Gets the hand pass out. But it's chopped off by Saunders. And here come the Saints. Back to Lenny Hayes. Kick out wide to the wing southern stand side. Lewis gets after it with great gusto. His hand pass into Isaac Smith. His hand pass back to Hodge. Missed the target. Revolt's had a poor day, but he gathers this loose pill and kicks it high to full forward. 2-1 Hawthorn. Oh, the man in front, Gibson. He's killed him back there all day. Takes the mark. Plays on off the left boot. Happy to go up the corridor. And the mark is taken by Hartung. The kid on debut, 19-year-old from Mornington. He goes for the short ball, and it's back out to Lewis. 153, plays 22. Short pass into Roughhead, roaming down the ground. Now Rough goes for a long kick. McAvoy is there, does a bit of shepherding. Little bloke's at ground level. Puopolo gets to Nunes and creams him to the ground. The crumbs come to Poppy. And now Bruce fights hard for the ball close to the boundary line. The umpire having a good look at this and decides, that's mine, give it to me, I'm going to throw it up. And the umpire on that occasion is the man on debut, Robert O'Gorman.
65 from the Hawthorn goal. Oh, the ruckman laid a glove on it. McAvoy gets it, but he hand-passed it straight to Stephen. Working in the pack there for the Saints was Hayes. Bounces the ball up the wing. Oh, Gibson backed himself, defied the conditions, took it cleanly. Hand-pass to Hill. Brings it inboard. He set Hartung a bit of a task here, so he quite cleverly kicked it off the ground to Burchell, who had time to gather and then run around Revolt. Spreads it back to the southern wing where Rioli is now camped. Feeds it forward to Smith. Has Jones confronted him. And Savage trying to run him down. He hand passes backward to Rioli. Up inside the 50, McAvoy jumping from behind. Goes the disciplined spoil. Down to Hale. Out to Hallahan. Gives some more ground to Roughhead. Over the top to Rioli. He gets to 53. He sets it on a course to goal. Hill sets himself through one hand at it. Didn't make any contact. And it's off hands, out of play.
I didn't like the look of Montagna just standing in defensive goal square while the other mids are chasing behind in the middle of the ground. It's not a great look when your senior players doing that.
Throwing in the forward pocket for the Hawks. It comes down to Puopolo. He's tackled straight away. Attempted hack out of the air by Simpkin. Spills to Ray. Back to Dempster. Back to Montagna, who clears from the back pocket. Outside the 50. Hodge in front. Oh, how do you mark a wet ball? And he just clasped his forearms and his elbows around it and centred the ball into Hartung. And he marks short passes off to Roughhead. And Roughhead has just roamed all over the place. Has taken a mark 45 from goal. He's kicked 4 himself. He's been midfield. He's been on the back line. Rioli comes to the bench. He's puffing pretty hard. But Cyril has had a big day. 18 possessions. Roughhead for goal number 5. It's left all the way. And he gets the distance. But that's his first miss today. 4 goals, 1. So that's 17 for the season.
132 points the margin. Hawthorn's biggest ever win over St Kilda is 129 points in 1983. So very much on track to eclipse that. Montagna plays onto himself, runs into the back pocket, blasts it with not a lot of care towards Savage, who had Hale and Gibson against him, and quite obviously it was spoiled out of bounds.
Well, most people thought that St Kilda might be wooden spooners this year, but when they started winning 3 out of their first 5 games, people had to swallow their thoughts. But gee, a bit like the old St Kilda who perennially used to win the wooden spoon.
Nunes from the stoppage kicks up beyond halfway. Good mark taken by Stanley. He's going to spread it for Montagna out against the boundary, and it's a rare venture inside the 50. Akers sets himself, knocked away from him by Gibson. Got to be one at ground level. Hallahan backed himself, got it to Schoenmakers, to Burchell, and now to Litherland in defence. High ball around the southern wing. St Kilda do have numbers around it, but Puopolo's doing enough to keep it in dispute. Nunes hand passes over the top. Puopolo knocked Jones off it, and he opened the way for Hartung, and Hawthorn went even when they were outnumbered. Hand pass to Smith, up towards the 50, over the top of Gunston. It just needs to sit for Bruce to the back. He toes it towards the goal square, then goes racing back and gets the boot to it again. No, it's a free kick against him to Ray. So he used every bit of muscle that he had, including illegally, to reach the goal square first. So Farron Ray's free kick at fullback.
Gee, the crowd are cheering Hartung every time he gets it. They might have found a new little cult figure here. The kick in outside the 50. Roughhead nearly marks. Slippery ball spills out the back to Longer. His hand pass misses the target. Bruce might have another chance. He gathers. Hand pass to Ruffy, and he kicks and misses to the left-hand side. He's spoiling the party here, Ruff. He's kicked 2 behinds in a row. 24-11 the Hawks to St Kilda 3-4.
Third quarter in Canberra. The Giants have got back within 20 points. Port Adelaide 12-8-80 to GWS 9-6-60. On the kick-in is Webster for the Saints. Gone long to a pack. Billings into it. McAvoy the spoil. And the tidy up. His hand pass, though, is battered down. Jones goes off the ground. He'll gain about 20 metres as Gibson is after it. And he pushes it out of bounds. So between the wing and right half forward for the Hawks. Toss back in. Give it to Longer. Burgoyne overran it this time, but he gets it at the second occasion. Spins out of trouble. Hand passes to Smith. Spreads play for Duray, who had a little bit of a tough time getting hold of it. Back to Smith. Short ball, not 15. For Hill, who takes them on. Hand pass to Lewis. Back outside the 50 now. Hartung goes again. Gives it to Hodge. He'll send it up to full forward. See if they can get a marking target at it. Puopolo did enough coming from the side to spoil Bruce, the crummer. And Brewster's kicked his fourth. But a chest mark dropped in the goal square for the Saints. They can do nothing right. 139 points. The Hawthorn lead at the 13-minute mark of the final two.
And Puopolo's been super in the last couple of contests on the wing before. He was on against three guys. He beat them. He pushed it to the ground. They won that contest. He went forward. They didn't score. But that time he was actually in the goal square up against all sizes. He takes them on, pulls it to the ground and makes another goal for Bruce. So they just continue to do the right things at the right time when required.
Schoenmakers 4, Bruce 4, Roughhead 4. Here they come again from the centre bounce, but the Saints have it. Hand pass comes to Stephen. Off to Delaney, who straightens up and goes down the ground towards half forward. Revolt's taken 2 marks all day. That ball goes past him. It's gathered by Schneider. Here's his third mark, running in the same direction as the ball. Revolt out wide towards the forward pocket. Hasn't been a great day for marking, slippery ball, but they've been outmarked 96 to 51. Revolt scoreless today. He goes for goal across the face, nearly a mark on the behind line, but it goes off hands and through for a minor score. So the margin's back to 138 points.
So that's inside the top 25 biggest margins of all time. Hawthorn's biggest ever win is 162 points. 165 points. So that's certainly not out of the realms of possibility. Birchall to Suckling, long kick around the boundary. Nothing for Duray against the boundary. It'll be thrown in.
Well, we said earlier on, even if it's one-sided, we might have a great day at the footy because we're going to see a display of football, and that's exactly right. It's been phenomenal.
In all manner of conditions. 25 goals from the Hawks. At this stoppage, Montagna's dragged down. Saunders has a go. Releases the hand pass to Ray, who spreads it to Hayes. Saints up inside the 50. Revolt sets himself for a jump. Gibson knocks it away. Schoenmakers and Gibson both go after the loose ball. Schoenmakers gathers. Hand pass to Lewis, off to Duray, and now to Hodge. Releasing hand pass for Litherland to run through the defensive 50. Can set them up either through the middle or round the southern wing. He goes pretty well through the middle with a long ball to half forward. Trapped well by Bruce. Slick hand pass to Hill. He's hit the 2-man tackle. Has to release it in a hurry. Hallahan did okay. Got it to Burgoyne. Out the back to Birchall and Suckling. And he sets them up for the kick inside the 50, which Gunston slip slides into and takes it 45 from goal.
Support footy. That's what they play, Hawthorn. They play magnificent support footy, whether they're coming out of the back end, where the ball gets turned over at half forward or in dispute at half forward. They've always got someone in support. And look, the first time I've seen them live this year, I think their foot skills have gone to another level this year.
Schoenmakers, Bruce, roughhead, a ball kicked 4 to join that party. Gunston can't. He misses near side. Hawthorn by 139.
Saints have kicked 1 behind in the last quarter. In fact, they didn't kick it, it was rushed. Montagna kicks to himself and then skirts the boundary line, gets a bit of a shepherd from Nunes and kicks it over half-back. Oh, what a mark by Birchall. In body with Clinton Jones. He kicks in and backwards to Suckling, who advances it inside centre half forward. Rioli follows up, gets it going goalwards. He now applies the tackling pressure. It's coming Hawthorn's way off the ground hill to the goal square. Dempster claimed the mark in the last line. Kicks to the defensive 50. It spins through a couple of players. The hand pass comes out from Billings to Hayes, and he kicks to Riewoldt, who marks. He's inside the centre square with no forwards in front of him. They have to dash down the ground, and Riewoldt's kick well away from Billings, who gets out and claims it just in from the boundary line. Kicks backwards to Montagna, closer to centre wing.
There's no one in the forward line. They've been parked down the back line for the last hour and a half. They haven't come up.
Kick sideways for Ray, couldn't fingertip it. It's intercepted here by Gunston. Hand pass to Rioli. He motors away, puts it out in front of Burgoyne. Has to get rid of Weller. Does. Paddles it backwards, but the Saints have numbers around it. Simpkin gathers. High ball around the wing. Lewis makes the spoil on Hayes. Montagna at ground level. He's well wrapped up by Birchall. Lewis off the ground inside the 50. Gunston gathers. Releasing hand pass to Hale. It didn't quite reach him. He didn't gather. Longer does. And he gives it to Curran for the Saints.
Back he goes to Ray. Short pass up the ground. When Nunes marks, gets the hand pass away to Dempster. He just blazes away anywhere. And Hawthorn don't do that. And so he's given it up to the opposition. And once again, it is Gibson who gathers. Hand pass to Suckling. Short one over the top. And here's Hartung. And you can hear the cheers for young Billy Hartung. On centre wing, short pass. And this comes up to Hallahan. Liston Trophy last year for Box Hill when they won the premiership in the VFL. The kick inside the 50. No mark. Comes to the front. Now Weller clears for St Kilda. Back to midfield. Chest mark to Rioli. Hand pass away. Gibson has a fumble. Back to Rioli. Just building on his stats. And let me check. He's up to 21, Cyril.
He gave it to Schoenmakers out of centre half back. Off for Duray. Up for Birchall. Missed the hand pass to Smith. Duray trundles on. Pushes it in front of himself. Dragged down by Hayes. Lost possession. Ray gathers at half back for the Saints. He gives some ground to Montagna, who hand passes for the boundary. And it goes out of play. 25-12 to 3-5. We've crossed the 19-minute mark of the final term. Plays it left half forward for the Hawks. Nothing from the ruckman. Savage onto it for the Saints. Kicks around the wing. Stanley up into the pack, but he didn't mark. He left it there for Gibson. Gives a little ground to Hodge. And the Hawks start to work the angles again.
Only 19 and a half minutes played in the last quarter. Beautiful pass by Hodge, and Hallahan takes the mark. In the orange boots, the kick to centre half forward doesn't hit a target, but it skims on. McAvoy gets a touch. Back to Rioli, who bursts onto it with his usual speed, which is 100 miles an hour. Gathers, hand pass into Gunston. Back he goes to Roughhead. Sweeps one back. Gibson, one way, then the other. Caught, but gets the hand pass away. For the first time, they're under a bit of pressure here. And it is taken over the boundary line by Duray. And they went from Rioli in the forward pocket back to outside halfback flank, Great Southern stand side. The margin, 139 points at the 20-minute mark.
Port leading the Giants by 29 points in the third term in Canberra, 15-9 to 9-6. From the stoppage at half forward, Hallahan got offloaded. Akers gets hold of it for the Saints through Longer and Jones, and now wide of the pack for Montagna. He'll kick it up to halfway. Stanley goes with the one arm, can't take the mark. Gibson scraps with Billings against the boundary, and Stanley has worked across that line. Thrown in. Crowd posted at 32,924. And pretty atrocious conditions at various times. From the throw-in, Hartung with a chance, defensive side of the pack. Hand pass to Gibson, who's brought down by Stanley. Has released the footy. Jones is dragged down by Smith. Hallahan cracked in, held the footy up. And it'll be balled up. St Kilda's side of the middle.
It'll be interesting post this game. You know, St Kilda, they're not in a great spot. Where does Snyder fit into the team? You know, do they just look at their VFL team now and start blooding young players, giving game with the support with Montagna, Hayes and Riewoldt staying in the team? They're really interesting stage.
Rioli wins a really tough ball back behind centre wing. Hartung had a touch, and the ball comes out now in front of Duray. He backs himself but gets taken to ground in a pretty good tackle. And that was well played by Saunders, who not only dispossessed him, he won the ball back. Gets the hand pass to Ray. Kicks to the Great Southern Stand wing, where the mark's taken by Montagno. Goes for the short pass up the ground, and Billings has it. Little hand pass back. Ray followed up and finds Stanley on the lead. Too far out to score. Kick down to the forward pocket. Riewoldt outnumbered 2-1. He can't take the mark. Schoenmakers is there. And they just get back in numbers, the Hawks, making life a nightmare for Nick Riewoldt. And the ball's out of play in the forward pocket at the punt road end. Hawthorn at 25-12, 162 to the Saints, 3-5-23.
Quite a period without a goal. At the throw-in, St Kilda's forward pocket. McAvoy won it down. Jones is onto the footy. He can take a flying snap at goal and land in the square. Didn't reach Riewoldt. Good spoil by Schoenmakers. Rush through from behind. So still Hawthorn measly. And only 3 goals for the afternoon for St Kilda. Margins 138.
Kick in short. Isaac Smith takes the mark. Up towards centre wing. Scrap for the ball. Hale putting on pressure, but the Saints come out with it. Holding the ball rules the umpire. And it's going to be a Hawthorn free kick to David Hale. Kicks it back to Hartung, who's had plenty of it. He's had 23 possessions on debut and started as the sub, so he missed the first quarter. That's some game. Short pass to the middle of the ground, Rioli. Further short pass, where the mark's taken by Puopolo. He goes off the right. A rare right footer for this Hawthorn team. Roughhead has to punch the ball away. Down in front. Lewis putting pressure on at ground level. Out comes Clint Jones for the Saints with a high ball, and Nunes comes in to mark for the Saints.
He'll kick into the middle of the ground and sits there for a while. Suckling is able to make the spoil on Stanley. Gather the footy, kick the Hawks back to half forward. Hodge and Hill coming in opposite directions. Hill was called in. Hodge will still get it as his younger teammate lays off the pass. And Luke Hodge can have a ping at his first. It didn't amount to a goal. It's marked in the defensive goal square by Delaney. Kicks it for Nunes. He has to push his way past McAvoy. He got caught. He's lost the footy. Gunston with a hand pass and ricocheted off a couple of sets of hands and feet and over the boundary. Left forward pocket for the Hawks. Under a scoreboard that reads 162-24.
They're 138 points in front and 137 disposals in front.
Rioli through the pack off the outside of the boot. Not this time. He misses. And it makes 2 goals, 1 for Cyril Rioli. 139-point lead.
Remarkable day at the MCG. Hawthorn fans who are here might never forget this day. And they've seen the arrival of young Billy Hartung as well as the superstars going great guns and everyone getting amongst the goals. Mav Weller takes the mark at half-back flank for the Saints. Half-distance pass, diving in as Saunders. He's lost it. Chain of hand passes by the Hawks. Hodge goes down the line. Bruce marks. Disciplined centering ball. Beautiful. And Geordie Lewis marks on his chest. Virtually right in front and 20 metres out. Game 200.
Well, we spoke about discipline. Well, we spoke about it the whole day with the Hawthorn Football Club, and that's the way they played. And just go to woe, they've done it. He had a look at the goals. I'm sure he had them in sight, but saw the 200 game player, Jordan Lewis, in the middle and got it to him.
To be their 11th different goal kicker, he skips in and goes from 25 and makes no mistake. And look at the come to Lewis. Heart and soul of the Hawks. And a marvellous milestone game.
And he's one of the ones that we talk about. He's not the most talented of the Hawks. He's not the most fluent on his feet. He's not the best kick, but does he have a dip? He has a real dip at it, and he's the heart and soul with Hodgie and Sewell when they're in there, and Mitchell in the midfield. They're tough, they're strong. They built this side from the start, and they must be very proud to be part of it after after the opening of when they started their careers. And Ruffy as well was part of that as well. So this is the culmination of a hell of a lot of work, and we can see what happens.
Margin 145 points. Hawthorn's kicked 15 in a row. They've got 11 individual goal kickers. Out of the middle, the Saints scrambled forward briefly, although Suckling's been dispossessed. Saunders really harrying after the footy. Montagna threw that to Hayes. The mercy rule's obviously in operation. Hand passes it to Stephen, who snaps a goal. A belated goal for the Saints. Just the fourth of a miserable afternoon. And it pulls the margin back to 139 points.
Well, you see the name. You saw a replay of the Hawthorn coach, Alistair Clarkson. He wasn't happy. He's not happy. That's where there's a team. They're just each easy goal. It's a broken 15-goal run and put his hands in his head and shook it. So, look, Hayes, Montagna, and just
who made the fault? He beat them up.
Stevens. Yeah, exactly. The runner straight out to him.
Billy Longer takes a giant leap at it. Comes down in the direction of Jones, but he's second to the ball. Hawthorn gets the hand pass away through the middle, Burgoyne. A beautiful pass to Smith, but he had to be camped under the ball, and the spoil was put on it by Webster. Smith goes back and gets it to Lewis. Back to Smith. He reefs the ball across the ground. Magnificent kick. And the mark taken by Suckling inside the centre square. He hesitates about going around the man on the mark. And he goes to Duray. Back to Suckling. Suckling just hoists it high. Might bring more rain. Rioli's there. Spills off. The hand pass comes wide. Too wide. Towards the boundary line and seen over the boundary line. And we have a throw in just inside the 50. Hawthorn 26-13, 169. St Kilda 4-6-30.
Maybe one more chance for the Hawks. Hale knocks it down underfoot. Gunston has eyes for the goal. He will dribble through his fourth and make it a quartet who'll put up 4 goals apiece. Restore the margin to 145. 27 goals in total.
Just been a domination. And you talk about, and this is not about the goal that was just kicked, but you talk about Hawthorn and they built a list with the Roughheads and these blokes that you mentioned. But what they've done really well in this window of success is they've recruited really well. And there's a player, Gunston. He's come in and fit in seamlessly. The recruitment of McAvoy. It's just been brilliant. The recruitment they really went after a full-back. They got Brian Lake. Burgoyne was probably one of the first from Port Adelaide that they got into the team. So not only have they recruited well over the period of time, they've actually recruited players that are going to make a difference.
Out of the middle, and the siren ends the misery for the Saints. They've been bowled over by 145 points in a virtuoso performance by the flag favourites, the Hawks, who kicked 27 goals to 4. Final score 27-13, 175 to 4 goals 6-30. What a victory in front of 32,924.
Hawthorn's biggest ever win over St Kilda. What remarkable. What a scoreline. 27-13, 175
to St Kilda 4-6-30. And the goal kickers they'll be in the rooms by the time I finish. Roughhead kicked 4, Gunston kicked 4, Bruce kicked 4, and Schoenmakers, a former defender playing his first game of the year, also kicked 4 goals. The rest, 2 for Burgoyne, 2 for Hale, 2 for Puopolo, 2 for Rioli. Singles for Lewis in game 200, Hill and Hartung on debut. For St Kilda, just 4 goals for the entire day. 1 each for Stephen, Montagna, Billings and Stanley. The Saints have disappeared the scene and will be in the car quickly, I'd say.
It's just missed the top 20 winning margins of all time. That'll slot in at 23rd for the Hawks, who've got 3 entries above that, but that is a rare afternoon at the footy, Mark.
Yeah, we're talking about a defensive era here, Jared. I mean, this is a completely coached defensive game. And for this would be a record in this era, I would think, by a mile, 27 goals. I just thought the Hawks gave them a good old-fashioned shellacking out here this afternoon and done with an enormous amount of class. I love the way that they played. They played in different areas. In the dry, they were beautiful flow and handball and shots on goal, and they kicked 6 goals early to kick off the game. And then in the second quarter, it was raining, it was wet, and they adapted beautifully to the rain. They kicked long to the goal square. The Tors brought it down, and all of a sudden they kicked 5 goals in the second, So there's 2 different styles of football played. The defence was just organised extremely well. Josh Gibson was the one who did that. Brian Lake was there for a while. It was okay until he got injured. Giray was always there. Birchall and Hodge, the other ones who were there, and also Littleland was there as well, who continued to push the ball forward and set up well. Gibson was beautiful in that area, and then that was in the second quarter. And then the third quarter had the same. They kicked 10 in the third. They thought, we'll get better at this. Had a bit of practice. We might just bowl them over here in the third quarter. And then in the last, they threw in another little 6-goal quarter just to finish them off. They were tired. They worked really hard. They ran hard. They covered for each other. They've got a couple of really good games coming up, Hawthorn. Sydney next week, and they've got a bye. And then they've got Port Adelaide round 10 at Adelaide Oval, which would be an absolute beauty on a Saturday night. That'll be much viewing for all footy fans, and they'll put some of these skills that they had today into practice against probably the second best side in the competition in Port Adelaide at this stage. The Saints, well... And sorry, I forgot to mention, they introduced a couple of newies. Billy Hunger, which is another one that comes into their lineup and showed that he's got some talent. Mitch Hallahan, again, played another game. I think it's his 3rd in a row. So he started to get some touches of the ball. And also Ryan Schoenmakers, who comes back from a really long spell and proved that he has lost nothing. He's probably gained a bit. He looks like he's bigger and stronger. And he's understanding the game better as well. So the Saints, it's really hard to rate anything there. Alan Richardson had his head in his hands most of the day, and I can understand why. They just need to continue to work. There's a game next Monday against the Blues, which is a really winnable game. There wasn't much difference between those 2 performances, Carlton and St Kilda, I can assure you. They were both very ordinary. So, hey, it's back to the drawing board. This game never ends. Just keeps restarting, lick your wounds and get on with it. And I think that the Hawks gave a little glimpse of what might be around come the end of September.
Well, they'll go back to the top of the ladder. They have increased their percentage from 155.29 to 181.34. So a staggering addition to percentage after a number of weeks in the competition. So 145-point winners and back to the top of the ladder. Port Adelaide is going to beat the Giants there in the last quarter in Canberra, 16-11, 107 to GWS 10-6-66. But something better than a 7 or 8 goal win is not going to be enough to defend top place. Jordan Lewis has been hoisted up on shoulders in game number 200, and his milestone is an afternoon that will easily be recalled, I would think, for him and his teammates, and warm applause as he heads towards the race. The Hawks with a 6th win and a loss. They've still got a bit of work to do before the bye. The Swans next Friday night in Sydney.
You going to the engagement party, Sauce?
Yeah.
Good on you. So, what a day. 200 games. Get engaged.
I think the real story, Drew, is this, that we're back in 204 when they all kicked off. It's become
and not get a new coach or get rid of the coach because it just isn't exactly where you thought it was going to be. You need to be able to stay with it.
All right, let's share in this with the Hawks. Nerily Meadows is down in the rooms.
Yeah, it's certainly come at a cost, though, boys. We just saw Sammy Mitchell with the crutches. But for a moment, let's enjoy the joy on Jordan Lewis's 200th game and Ryan Schoenmaker's comeback game as Gibson just trips over the water bottles in front of me. Let's have a listen. Young debutant Hawthorn in the middle there. They're all giving him a pat on the head, drying his hair off quite well. We'll be chatting to Ryan Schoenmakers in a couple of minutes, so look forward to hearing from him in his comeback.
So we're about to release audiences in Queensland and Coast FM and Western Australia from the MCG. For the rest, we'll have the Ryan Schoenmakers interview and then head to the Adelaide Oval. It's been Hawthorn 27-13, 175 over St Kilda 4-6-30. In Canberra, it's Port Adelaide 16-11, 107 over the Giants 11-6, 72. But top two teams will both win, but they'll switch places. Hawks back to the top of the table. How will we do this? We'll probably need to sneak in the stats, the better players, the votes, and Ryan Schoenmakers and get off to Adelaide.
Yeah. Just a point on Billy Hartung, who was the bloke in the middle of the circle. On debut, was a sub. Didn't come on until the second quarter. He got 103 Dream Team points. And Hawthorn had 12 players who got the ton in the points. Now, you might say, who cares about Dream Team points? They had 12 players, St Kilda just 2. But Hartung has arrived as a player. 105 Dream Team points with 26 disposals, 16 kicks, 10 hand passes, 6 marks in 3 quarters of football on debut at the mighty MCG. Good day.
Yes. Run us through the rest.
Well, from the top, Grant Birchall had 34 possessions at 82%. Luke Hodge, 33. Burgoyne, 33. And next to Suckling with 31. Gibson, 30. Bruce and Smith, 29. 27 for Lewis. Hartung with 26. Hill, Rioli and Gunston all with 24. They just dominated. And the leader for the Saints was Lee Montagna, who was 10 in front of the next best with 39.
Well, Ryan Schoenmakers delighted us on his return today. He kicked 4 goals in the first half. Brian Lake ruined his fun. He had to head back into the back line. He's now with Nerily Meadows.
That was a pretty impressive comeback. Nice to be back out there.
Oh, absolutely. I've been waiting a long time for that, so I was buzzing during the week when I found out, and obviously great to be back with the boys.
A different role up forward, as Jared just mentioned, Brian Lake ruined it, but did you enjoy that up forward, kicking 4 goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the ball's coming in nice like that and your team's working well together like that, it's obviously fun up there, but no, I'm happy to play my role at either end, so yeah.
Is it a chance that it's short-lived given Lake looks like he's injured his calf? Are you happy to go back into defence next week up against Sydney?
Oh, I'm more than happy to play at both ends of the ground, so wherever they need me, I'll slot in nicely, but we'll see what happens next week.
Boys, over to you.
Ryan, congratulations, mate. Obviously, first game back. Was there any specific message from Clarko to yourself in regards to your comeback?
No, nothing too specific. They like to keep it pretty simple. Try not to confuse you on your sort of comeback or first game. So it was sort of that approach and just get out there, enjoy my footy again and have fun being back in the team.
Interesting from up here. Obviously, it was dry conditions early in the game and then the conditions deteriorated. As a club, do you address that before the game and the old what-if scenario if it starts to rain? Because it looks like you really adjusted well. You hit up early, and when the rain came, you actually just got it in long to the square.
Yeah, you've definitely got a plan for that. I mean, the forecast during the week wasn't looking great, so you've got to think about that and plan for if it does happen. So, obviously, nice and ready when the rain comes.
Ryan, congratulations for a terrific performance from yourself. How did you feel? What's it like, actually? I want to ask you a question. What's it like being in front of Cyril, Hill, Hodge, when you just lead and you got a yard on your man?
Yeah, those boys are pretty special with the footy, aren't they? So it's always nice to have them on your side of the fence, I suppose.
So what's next for you? Forward or back?
Oh, I'm honestly not too sure. Like I said, I'm happy at both ends. I love playing up forward today. It was nice and fun, obviously, getting involved in the goal kicking. So I'm happy to play up forward, but if they need me down back, I'll happily play a role for them.
Did you get a bruise today, or was it just a bruise-free game for you?
No, it's always tough footy out there, so never any bruise-free footy, but it was a good win.
When did you last kick 4 goals in a game, and where were you?
Honestly, I think it might have been high school. It's a while ago now, so been down back for a long time. I think I've played forward and kicked a couple the last couple of years, but never a bag like that, so I'm very happy.
First since high school on the mighty MCG. It's not bad.
You had a really good grounding before coming back today. Are you really confident in your knee and in your body?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got a great rehab staff and fitness staff at the club, and just to see all the other boys like Matty Suckling, Whitey beforehand, and then Alex Woodward come back in such great shape, it gives me a lot of confidence that those boys are up and about. So, yeah, definitely.
What chance would you be to stand Lance Franklin next Friday night, do you think?
We'll have to look at it during the week, but yeah, that'd be an interesting role, I suppose. Whoever gets him will be a big task.
You would have sparred with him across the years?
Yeah, plenty of that. Plenty of that out in the practice field, also in the boxing ring as well. So hopefully it doesn't come to that.
It might be funny if it did. Yeah. Ryan, well done. It's great to see you back, and onward and upward.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Ryan Schoenmaker's there with us. 4 goals, 1 today, and then the second half in defence in Hawthorn's 145-point win. Righto, better players and votes.
I'll do the better players, Jared, and let Westy do the votes.
I'll just put down the
Birchall was fantastic. I know all this already done. Burgoyne, of course, a magnificent player. Started well and just continued on all day. Hodgie, terrific. Birchall, good. Gibson, I thought he was tremendous down back. He has been for some time. Best and fairest last year, and he continues on. I like Piopolo's work. I like Hill's work. Isaac Smith's a star. The kids, Hartung and all those blokes. I could probably name 10 or 15 in there and miss a couple as well. So it was a really good... I like what McAvoy does now as a ruckman. He's a completely different changed player than what he was at St Kilda because he's taught well and done... He puts it to the right spots, plays very well. So big change in his game. Montagna had 188 kicks or something. I don't know what he had. But had really minimal effect. He knows how to get a kick, no doubt about that. Stevens had a few. I liked the way he went about it. Dempster... I like the kids. Some of the kids there were really good. I really like Saunders when he came on and did a bit. Akers was pretty good as well. Billings showed a little bit of fight as well. Some of their big names didn't do too well. And Jack Rewalt, Nick Rewalt was one of those. So it was a bit average from that point of view. That's about all from me.
Votes. Well, to the point. I'm going to give one vote to the guy that we just interviewed. I thought he was outstanding. Kicked 4 goals. I would have loved to have seen him stay forward, but as we said, the flexibility in their team is that he has to go back and play on Rewalt. I thought he was great in his comeback game. Gibson, even though St Kilda allowed him to play the way he wants to play, and that is third man up, loose as a defensive player, sets him up from the back end, quarterback style, but defended really well one-on-one when he had to as well on Rewalt, so he got the 2. We all know who got the 3, Burgoyne. We had him at 3/4 time, just outstanding from the start of the game and just a silky smooth player.
3 for Burgoyne, 2 for Gibson, 1 for Schoenmakers. Hawthorn 27-13, 175 over St Kilda 4-6-30 in Canberra. In the last quarter, Port Adelaide 17-11, 113 to the Giants 13-6, 84. That's it from the MCG. Let's head now to the Adelaide Oval and join Matt Clinch.